The third time my mother-in-law's rolling pin slammed into my left shin, I heard the crisp, sickening crunch of shattering bone, excruciating pain, like a surge of pure electricity shot through my entire body. I collapsed onto the cold tile floor, my vision blurring with tears. The harsh kitchen light illuminated the contorted, furious face of my mother-in-law, Margaret Price, and the cold silhouette of my father-in-law, Robert Price, standing beside her with his arms crossed, watching. "This is for talking back. This is for daring to say my cooking is too salty," Margaret panted, the rolling pin still held aloft. "Once you step through the door of the Price family, you follow the Price family rules. Did you think you were still some college girl? You useless, barren bitch." I curled into a ball, my left leg bent at a grotesque angle. Every breath brought a fresh wave of agony. I tried to crawl towards the door, my fingers leaving weak, desperate streaks on the linoleum. "Ethan, Ethan," I whispered my husband's name, my last hope. Footsteps approached from the living room. Ethan Price, my husband, the man who, 3 years ago under a sycamore tree on the university campus, had sworn to protect me for the rest of his life, walked slowly to the kitchen doorway. He looked down at me, his eyes holding not an ounce of pity, only impatience. "Now what? What is it this time?" He sighed, his gaze falling on my obviously deformed leg, yet his expression didn't change. "Ethan, my leg is broken," I managed through clenched teeth, cold sweat soaking my bangs. "Take me to the hospital. I'm begging you." Ethan crouched down, but not to inspect my injury. He grabbed my chin, forcing my head up to look at him. "Amelia, how many times have I told you? You have to listen," he said, his voice terrifyingly calm. "My parents are getting older. Can't you just humor them a little? Do you always have to provoke them until they're furious?" I stared at him in disbelief. "I just said the food was a little salty, that it wasn't good for their blood pressure." Still talking back, Margaret raised the rolling pin again. Ethan held up a hand to stop her, but his next words plunged me into an icy abyss. "That's enough, Mom. Her leg is already broken. Let this be a lesson to her." He released my chin, stood up, and brushed his hands together as if he had touched something filthy. "Let her lie on the floor and think about what she's done. We'll take her to the hospital tomorrow." Tomorrow? It was 8 p.m. My leg was already swelling to a terrifying size, each heartbeat a tearing pain. "Ethan, no! It has to be now!" I could be permanently disabled. I grabbed his pant leg, begging pathetically. He easily shook me off, looking down at me from his superior height. "Relax. You're not going to die. This is your punishment for not listening. Remember that." With that, he turned, put his arm around his mother's shoulders, and walked back towards the living room. "Don't be angry anymore, Mom. I ordered that deep dish pizza you love. It'll be here soon. And Dad, weren't you saying yesterday you wanted to watch that war movie? I found the HD version." The voices of the three of them faded, mingling with the sound of the TV turning on and their casual laughter. I was left alone in the kitchen, lying on the floor, the physical pain merging with the profound chill in my heart. I closed my eyes, and the tears finally broke free. 3 years ago, I was a graduate of a prestigious university, the cherished only daughter of my parents. When I met Ethan, he was so gentle, so considerate, swearing he would make me the happiest woman in the world. I believed him. Against my parents' objections, I married him and moved across the country to this city, 1,000 miles from home. After the wedding, everything changed. My mother-in-law began to find fault with everything about me. My career was too demanding for me to be a good wife. My cooking didn't suit her taste. Even the way I smiled became a reason for her to fly into a rage. Ethan went from initially trying to mediate, to staying silent, and finally, to siding with his parents and criticizing me. A year ago, I had a miscarriage. My mother-in-law called me useless, and my husband began to subject me to cold, silent abuse. I wanted a divorce, but they held all my documents and monitored my phone. I had no way to even contact my parents so far away. My phone was in my purse in the living room, unreachable. The kitchen window faced the backyard. Screaming for help would be useless. No one would hear. Time ticked by, second by agonizing second. The pain began to numb, my consciousness fading in and out. I could hear them eating in the living room, the sound of gunshots from the TV, punctuated by their occasional laughter. "Ethan, are you sure she'll be all right?" It was my father-in-law's voice, laced with a hint of hesitation. "Don't go soft, Dad. She needs to learn a lesson, or she'll be even harder to manage later." Ethan's voice was as casual as if he were discussing the weather. My colleague, old Mark, his wife wouldn't listen, so he beat her until she ended up in the hospital. Now she's as meek as a kitten. You can't spoil women. But her leg is broken. My mother-in-law's voice. "Don't worry, Mom," I asked around. "A broken bone, a few days of rest, and she'll be fine. We'll take the medical bills out of her savings account. Why should we pay for her clumsiness? And speaking of which, she might as well quit that job and focus on serving you two at home." I closed my eyes, my nails digging so deep into my palms that they drew blood. But the pain in my heart was far worse. Those words were like knives, slashing away the last shred of attachment I had for this marriage. Late into the night, they went to their respective rooms to sleep. Not one of them came to check on me. I lay on the cold floor, my left leg completely devoid of sensation. Darkness enveloped me like a suffocating net. But just as despair was about to swallow me whole, a tiny voice echoed in my mind. Asterisk. "Amelia, are you just going to die here? Like a stray dog no one cares about?" Asterisk. No. I couldn't. Using my good right arm, I pushed myself up, bit by bit. Every inch of movement sent waves of excruciating pain through me. 6 feet away was the corner of the kitchen counter. I remembered there was an inconspicuous drawer there, holding spare kitchen tools, including an old can opener. Its edge was dull, but it was sharp enough. It took me what felt like an hour, maybe longer, to drag myself to that drawer. The moment I pulled it open, I nearly passed out, sweat and tears blurring my vision. The can opener lay there, its cold metal glinting in the faint light. I wasn't going to use it to harm anyone. That would only bring more trouble. I used it for something else. To pry open the small ventilation window on the back kitchen door. A window that had been painted shut, and I'd never paid attention to. The window was tiny, but I was slender. In the face of my survival instinct, the pain seemed to recede. I dragged my broken leg, inch by inch, through the frame, tumbling onto the grass of the backyard. The night air was bitingly cold, but I felt a clarity I hadn't felt in years. My phone, my wallet, my ID all were inside, confiscated by them. I was penniless, with a broken leg, wearing only a thin nightgown on the late autumn grass. But I was free, at least, for the moment. I oriented myself and began crawling towards the lights of the nearest neighbor's house, a distance of 30 feet that felt like a marathon. Sharp stones on the lawn tore at my palms and knees. My broken leg left a long, twisted trail in the dew-covered grass. Just before I lost consciousness, I reached the neighbor's porch and, with my last ounce of strength, knocked on the door. The person who opened it was an elderly woman. When she saw my horrific state, she gasped, "Help me." I managed to force out the words before my world went black, but I didn't completely lose consciousness. In the chaos, I felt myself being lifted. I heard the old woman on the phone, calling for an ambulance. I also heard her angry whisper, "Damn it, it's that Price family again." The wail of the ambulance siren grew closer. I was lifted onto a stretcher, and someone covered me with a warm blanket. In the emergency room, under the blinding white lights, doctors and nurses bustled around me. The X-ray showed a comminuted fracture of both the tibia and fibula in my left leg. I needed surgery immediately. "Where's her family?" the doctor asked. I weakly shook my head. "I don't have any. I'll sign for myself." "How did this happen?" a young female nurse asked, her eyes full of sympathy. I stared at the ceiling and said, each word clear and deliberate, "My mother-in-law beat me with a rolling pin. My husband watched me lie on the floor all night." The emergency room fell silent for a moment. Then I heard the nurse's sharp intake of breath and saw the doctor's brow furrow deeply. "Call the police," the doctor said, his voice tight with suppressed anger. "No." I stopped the nurse who was reaching for the phone. "Not yet." Everyone looked at me. I lay on the gurney, my broken leg temporarily stabilized. The pain had subsided under the effect of medication, but deeper than the physical agony, something was igniting within me. It wasn't despair anymore, but something cold, sharp, and waiting to erupt. "Doctor," I looked at the attending physician. "I need you to do me a favor. Go on." I laid out my plan. At first, the doctor frowned and shook his head, but after listening to all the details, he fell silent for a long time, and finally, he nodded. "Are you sure you want to do this?" he asked. "I'm sure." My voice was soft but strangely firm. This was my only chance. When I woke up, I was in a hospital room, my left leg encased in a thick cast and elevated. The sun was bright outside the window, its morning rays filtering through the blinds, casting striped patterns on the white sheets. The anesthesia was wearing off, and the pain was beginning to reawaken. But clearer than the pain was the plan in my mind. "You're awake!" A gentle female voice. It was the nurse from last night. Her name tag read Chloe Davis. "Nurse Davis." I tried to make my voice sound weaker. "Thank you. Don't talk. Save your strength." She adjusted my IV drip. In a lower voice, she added, "The police came by this morning. I told them you were still unconscious. As you requested, they haven't gone to your house yet." I nodded. "My husband. Have they contacted the hospital?" "Not yet." She hesitated for a moment. "Are you sure you don't want to report it right now? Your mother-in-law's actions constitute aggravated assault. And your husband—" "I know," I interrupted her, my voice so calm it surprised even me. "But calling the police is just the first step. What I want isn't just punishment. It's complete freedom. And justice." Nurse Davis looked at me, her eyes filled with doubt but more with sympathy. She must have seen too many victims of domestic abuse, and too many cases where they ultimately returned to their abusers. "Your phone." She took an old smartphone from the drawer. "Mrs. Peterson, the neighbor who saved you, asked me to give this to you. She said it has a prepaid SIM card inside. She also told me to tell you that she's willing to be a witness." I took the phone. It was an older model, but it worked fine. A warmth spread through my chest. In this unfamiliar city, for 3 years, I had been isolated and monitored by the Price family, with almost no social circle of my own. I never expected that in my darkest hour, the one to extend a helping hand would be an elderly neighbor I had only met a few times. "Mrs. Peterson also said," Nurse Davis added, "that she heard shouting and beatings from your house more than once. But every time she wanted to call the police, your mother-in-law would curse her out and chase her away. She feels terrible for not helping you sooner." I shook my head. "No, she saved my life. That's more than enough." After Nurse Davis left, I opened the phone. The contact list was empty. The photo album only had a few landscape pictures taken by Mrs. Peterson, but it was enough. I relied on my memory and dialed a number I thought I would never call again. The phone rang 5 times before someone picked up. "Hello?" It was my mother's voice, tinged with morning sleepiness and a bit of caution. It was an unknown number. "Mom," I started, my voice choking. "It's me, Amelia." There was a long, sharp intake of breath on the other end, followed by a suppressed sob. "Amelia, where are you? We haven't heard from you in 6 months. Your father and I have been going out of our minds. The Prices told us you ran off with another man. We didn't believe it, but we couldn't find you. Mom, listen to me." I tried to keep my voice steady. "I've been abused by Ethan and his parents. They broke my leg. I'm in the hospital now." "What?" My mother's voice shot up. "Which hospital? Your father and I are coming right now." "No, don't come yet," I said quickly. "Listen to my plan. I need you and Dad to cooperate. But you can't show up now. Once the Prices know I've contacted you, they'll become suspicious." "But Amelia, your leg. I've had surgery. It's not life-threatening." I paused. "Mom, for the past 3 years, I was wrong. I shouldn't have disobeyed you and Dad. I shouldn't have moved so far away. And I especially shouldn't have stayed silent the first time they laid a hand on me. But now, I see everything clearly. I want a divorce, and I want to make them pay." There was a few seconds of silence on the other end. Then my father's deep, strong voice came on the line. "Amelia, it's Dad. Tell me your plan. Your mother and I will support you completely." The tears finally streamed down my face. For 3 years, for the sake of a so-called love, I had hurt the people who loved me most. My parents had been vehemently against this marriage from the start, not because they looked down on Ethan's background, but because they saw the control hidden beneath his gentle facade and the stubbornness hidden beneath his parents' traditional airs. But I, blinded by love, had even said foolish things like I would cut ties with them if I had to. I wiped away my tears. First, I need a lawyer. The best divorce lawyer you can find. One who specializes in domestic abuse and asset disputes. But don't let the Prices know you're the ones who hired him. No problem. I have a college friend who's an expert in this field. I'll have him contact you. Second, I need you to help me gather some things. I listed in detail what I needed. Proof of my premarital assets, the pay stubs from the bank account that was in my name but controlled by the Prices, and most importantly, the medical records from my miscarriage a year ago, when my mother-in-law deliberately delayed taking me to the hospital, causing me to hemorrhage. That miscarriage, my father's voice trembled. They did it on purpose? I don't know for sure, I said honestly. But at the time, my mother-in-law said it was for the best, since who knew if the baby was even a Price? And Ethan didn't say a single word to defend me. I heard my father's muffled curse, and my mother's crying on the other end. There's more, I continued. I need you to help me rent an apartment so I have a place to stay after I'm discharged. The location needs to be discreet, where they can't find me. Amelia, just come home. Come home to us, my mother cried, snatching the phone. I will, but not now. I looked at my casted leg. There are some things I have to finish here. After hanging up, I felt a strange sense of calm. 3 years of fear, grievance, and self-doubt coalesced in that moment into something hard and solid. I was no longer the submissive Amelia, desperate to trade appeasement for a scrap of affection. There was a knock on the door. It was Dr. Evans, my attending physician. How are you feeling? He checked my IV and my cast. Dr. Evans, I remember you said last night that my fracture could be assessed for a disability rating. He paused for a moment, then nodded. A comminuted fracture of the tibia and fibula, even with successful surgery, has a high probability of leaving permanent side effects, affecting your ability to walk. If you want an assessment, I can help you contact a forensic medical examiner. Please arrange it for me, I said. But for now, don't put the results in my medical record. I'll ask you for it when I need it. Dr. Evans looked at me deeply. Miss Miller, I understand you want a divorce, but domestic abuse cases are notoriously difficult to prove, especially when the police weren't called at the scene. Your mother-in-law could easily claim you fell. Your husband could claim he knew nothing. I smiled, a smile that made Dr. Evans pause. That's why we need evidence, I said softly. Ironclad evidence. Over the next 3 days, I acted according to my plan. Through my parents, a lawyer, Mr. Sterling, secretly came to the hospital. We mapped out a detailed strategy. He told me that because I hadn't reported it immediately, the chances of the police opening a criminal case were slim unless new evidence emerged. But in a divorce proceeding, domestic violence is a statutory fault, which could entitle me to damages and give me an advantage in the division of assets. The problem is proof, Mr. Sterling said. I have a way, I told him my plan. After listening, Mr. Sterling pushed up his glasses. The risk is very high, but if it succeeds, the Price family will pay a heavy price. But Miss Miller, are you sure you want to do this? It could be very painful. Compared to the last 3 years, it's nothing, I said calmly. At the same time, I asked Nurse Davis to casually mention to the families of other patients that there was a poor woman in room 304 whose husband and in-laws had beaten her and broken her leg, and that her family hadn't visited once. The news spread like wildfire. By the second day of my hospital stay, several patients' families would cast sympathetic glances my way as they passed my room, and I knew that this sympathy would quickly turn into outrage against the abusers. This was the public atmosphere I needed. On the morning of the 3rd day, Nurse Davis rushed in, lowering her voice. They're here. Who? Your husband and in-laws. They're downstairs, asking for room 304. She looked at me nervously. I'm not seeing them. We'll proceed with the plan. I nodded, my heart pounding, but my voice was steady. Pack my things and move me to the spare room. Then, informed Dr. Evans. Got it. Nurse Davis took a deep breath and quickly began packing my personal belongings. A few minutes later, I was moved to an empty room in the most secluded corner of the same floor. It was the furthest from the nurse's station, quiet and discreet. And from the window of my old room, I could see a portion of the hallway. I sat in a wheelchair, hidden behind the door, peeking through the crack. A few minutes later, familiar figures appeared. Ethan led the way, carrying a bunch of flowers, a slight smirk on his face. My mother-in-law, Margaret, followed, wearing her most expensive silk blouse, her hair perfectly coiffed. My father-in-law, Robert, had his hands clasped behind his back, looking like he was on an inspection tour. They stopped in front of room 304, my old room. Ethan knocked. No answer. He pushed the door open, came out a few seconds later, his brow slightly furrowed. Where is she? Margaret's shrill voice was particularly jarring in the quiet hallway. Probably went for a checkup, Ethan said nonchalantly. Let's just wait. Wait for what? I'm going to ask. Marguerite strode aggressively towards the nurse's station, her voice loud enough for half the floor to hear. Nurse! Where is Amelia Price from room 304? We're her family. The nurse on duty was Chloe Davis. She looked up, her expression professional yet distant. May I ask who you are? I'm her mother-in-law. Margaret jutted out her chin. Where is she? Did she run off? My son is kind enough to visit her, and she dares not to be here? Nurse Davis slowly flipped through a chart. The patient in room 304 was moved this morning. Moved? Moved where? Ethan walked over, a hint of impatience in his voice. I'm not at liberty to disclose that. The patient requested privacy. Privacy? We're her family. Margaret's voice rose another octave. I'm her mother-in-law. This is her husband. We have the right to know where she is. Their argument had already attracted the attention of other patients' families. A few people who had passed by my room earlier recognized them and began whispering. That's them. The ones who broke their daughter-in-law's leg. They look so respectable, but they're so vicious. I heard it's been 3 days, and this is the first time they've come. The whispers weren't loud, but they were loud enough for Ethan to hear. His face darkened, but he still tried to maintain a polite facade. Nurse? My wife's leg is injured. She might be emotionally unstable. We're very worried about her. Please, just tell us where she is. Nurse Davis looked up, straight at him. Mr. Price, your wife suffered a comminuted fracture of her left tibia and fibula, accompanied by severe soft tissue contusion and signs of hemorrhagic shock. Do you think that kind of injury is caused by being emotionally unstable? Ethan's expression froze. Margaret, however, still hadn't grasped the gravity of the situation, or perhaps she simply didn't care. She was clumsy and fell herself. What does that have to do with us? We came here out of kindness, and this is the attitude your hospital has? Get your supervisor out here. Just then, Dr. Evans emerged from his office, his white coat crisp, his expression serious. I am Amelia Price's attending physician, Dr. Evans. You are her family? Yes, I'm her husband, Ethan said quickly, trying to regain control of the situation. Dr. Evans, how is my wife? We're very concerned. Dr. Evans looked at him in silence for a few seconds. In that silence, the entire nurses' station was so quiet you could hear the beeping of the machines. All the nurses, patients, and their families were watching. Then, Dr. Evans spoke, his voice clear and steady, ensuring everyone could hear. Miss Amelia Price was discharged this morning and transferred to a mental health and wellness center. According to our preliminary diagnosis, she is suffering from severe post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and major depression, likely related to long-term domestic abuse. We have recommended that she file a police report and have provided her with a forensic medical report. The report indicates her fractures were caused by repeated blows from a blunt object, completely inconsistent with injuries from a fall. He paused, his eyes sweeping over the 3 faces that had instantly turned pale. Furthermore, when lucid, Miss Price repeatedly stated that she is afraid to go home, afraid of being beaten again. Therefore, We have respected her wishes and have not informed you of her whereabouts. If you insist on seeing her, I suggest you go through the police or her lawyer." A dead silence. Then, Margaret's shrill voice tore through it. "Nonsense. You're talking nonsense. That little witch fell on her own. She's just trying to extort us. What domestic abuse? There's no such thing." But this time, no one was on her side. Every eye in the vicinity was like a needle, pointed at them, filled with unconcealed contempt and indignation. Ethan's face went from white to red, then to a sickly green. He opened his mouth, as if to say something, but under Dr. Evans's calm gaze and the murmurs of the crowd, he couldn't utter a single word. Robert Price was the first to react. He pulled back his wife, who was about to argue further, and hissed, "Stop it! Haven't you made enough of a scene?" Then he turned to Dr. Evans, forcing a smile. "Doctor, there must be a misunderstanding. Amelia, that child, she might indeed have some mental issues. She's been known to lie like this before. If you could just tell us which facility she's at, we'll go visit her and clear things up." "I'm sorry. Protecting patient privacy is our duty." Dr. Evans cut him off, his tone leaving no room for argument. "If you have no other business, please do not disturb the other patients." With that, he turned and went back into his office, the door closing with a soft click. The sound was not loud, but it was like a resounding slap across the faces of the Price family. Amidst the pointing fingers and judgmental stares of the crowd, Ethan finally broke. He dragged his parents and practically fled from the nurse's station towards the elevator. As they passed the room where I was hiding, I saw their expressions clearly through the crack in the door. My mother-in-law's face was flushed, her lips trembling as she muttered curses. My father-in-law's face was ashen, his eyes filled with panic. And Ethan, my husband, the man who 3 days ago had watched me writhe in agony on the floor, now had a look of pure horror and disbelief on his face. He was afraid. What was he afraid of? That I had really gone to a mental institution? That I had called the police? Or was he afraid that the facade of a perfect family they had so painstakingly maintained had, in that instant, completely crumbled? The elevator doors closed, taking them away. I sat in my wheelchair and gently closed the door to my room. Nurse Davis came in, her eyes shining. "Did you see that? Their faces. Oh my God, that was so satisfying." I nodded, but I didn't feel the triumphant joy I had imagined, only a cold, calm emptiness. "This is just the beginning," I whispered. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Mr. Sterling. Asterisk. "Evidence collection is partially complete. Also, Ethan Price's company just contacted me to inquire about your situation. It seems they received an anonymous complaint about his suspected domestic abuse and false imprisonment." Asterisk. I replied. Asterisk. "Proceed as planned. Let the complaint marinate for a while." Asterisk. After the Price family left the hospital, my room returned to a quiet state, but I knew it was just the calm before the storm. They wouldn't let this go. Nurse Davis poured me a glass of water, a worried look on her face. "Especially your mother-in-law. A person like her, after being publicly humiliated like that today, will definitely want to get her own back." I took the glass, the warmth seeping into my palm. "I know. That's why we need to be ready." Just as I said that, the phone rang. It was an unknown number from this city. I motioned for Nurse Davis to be quiet, answered the call, and pressed the record button. "Amelia." It was Ethan's voice, suppressing his anger but still audible. "Where are you? Tell me right now. Where I am. What does that have to do with you?" My voice was very light, even a little weak. This was genuine. The anesthesia had completely worn off, and the pain in my leg was coming in waves. "I'm your husband. What do you think it has to do with me?" His voice rose, then immediately lowered. "Amelia, stop messing around. Let's just forget about what happened today. Come home with me, and we'll talk properly." "Come home?" I let out a soft laugh, which silenced him for a moment. "Back to the house where you watched me get my leg broken? Back to the house where I was lying on the floor moaning in pain while you all sat in the living room eating pizza and watching TV? It was an accident," Ethan said quickly. "Mom didn't mean it. She just has a short temper. And you were at fault too. Why did you have to talk back? Couldn't you have just humored her a little? The same old tune. For the past 3 years, every conflict was my fault. I was too strong-willed, not gentle enough. I didn't know how to please them. My job was too busy. I wasn't taking care of the family. They were always right. Always just trying to do what was best for me. Ethan. I cut him off, my voice turning cold. My left tibia and fibula are shattered. It will be at least 3 months before I can even put weight on it. I might walk with a limp for the rest of my life. This wasn't an accident. This was intentional assault. And you were an accomplice. What nonsense are you talking? He was clearly panicked. What accomplice? Amelia, I'm warning you. Don't go around saying things like that. If you dare call the police, if you dare say anything, you'll do what? Beat me again? Or like before, confiscate my phone, my ID, my debit card, and lock me in the house? There was heavy breathing on the other end. After a few seconds, Ethan's voice changed, becoming soft, laced with the fake tenderness from when we were dating, a tenderness I hadn't heard in 3 years. Amelia, don't be like this. Whatever problems we have, we can sit down and solve them. Have you forgotten how good we used to be? I swear it will never happen again. Just come home. I'll have Mom apologize to you. Can we start over? If it were the old me, I might have softened. But the me now only felt sick to my stomach. Ethan, I said calmly, there's nothing for us to talk about. My lawyer will contact you to discuss the divorce. Also, my medical evaluation report is ready. My lawyer has advised me to report this to the police. Whether I do or not will depend on your future behavior. Lawyer? What lawyer? Amelia, where did you get a lawyer? Did your parents find one for you? I knew it. Your parents have always looked down on me, looked down on my family. Now they've finally found a chance to drive us apart, haven't they? His voice became shrill again, the feigned gentleness instantly torn away, revealing the possessive, controlling monster beneath. It has nothing to do with them, I said. I want the divorce. And the lawyer's fee is from my own salary. Is there a problem? Oh, right. For the past few years, you forced me to deposit my paycheck into that joint family account Mom manages. You guys only gave me a tiny allowance cash every month. When we divorce, we'll settle that debt properly. When we divorce, we'll settle that debt properly. You, Ethan, was furious. Amelia, do you have to push this until we're both destroyed? Let me tell you, you can have a divorce, but don't even think about getting a single penny. You're my wife. What's yours is mine. And don't think I can't find you just because you're hiding. I have connections at the hospital. Then go ahead and try. I cut him off. And I hung up. My hand was trembling slightly, but I felt a sense of exhilaration. For the first time in 3 years, I had fought back so clearly. For the first time, I had said everything I had been holding back. Nurse Davis looked at me worriedly. Are you okay? Do you think he can really find you here? Not in the short term, I shook my head. Dr. Evans has already given instructions. My information is confidential. Besides, he has bigger problems to deal with right now. What? I opened a message Mr. Sterling had just sent and showed it to her. It was a few screenshots from the biggest local online forum in the city. The headline was sensational. Anonymous tip, mid-level manager at TechCorp, Ethan Price, accused of long-term domestic abuse, beating wife to the point of hospitalization, a wolf in sheep's clothing. The poster claimed to be an insider, describing in detail how Ethan and his parents abused his wife, controlled her finances, and left her on the floor after breaking her leg without taking her to the hospital. The post included a picture of me in the hospital bed. My face was blurred, and a partial shot of my X-ray. The writing was fluent, the details were convincing, and it was incredibly persuasive. This is... Nurse Davis's eyes widened. Arranged by Mr. Sterling? I put the phone away. An anonymous tip, but based on facts. Ethan's company is very image-conscious. A scandal like this is enough to give him a major headache. Sure enough, an hour later, Ethan's calls started coming in frantically. I didn't answer. He sent a barrage of texts, starting with threats, then pleading, and finally, rage. Asterisk, Amelia, you're vicious. Did you post that article? Amelia, The board of directors and legal just called an emergency meeting because of your posts. They're talking about reputational risk and a moral turpitude clause in my contract. You're effectively blacklisting me from the entire industry. Are you satisfied now? Asterisk. Pick up the phone. Let's talk terms. What do you want? How much money? Just name your price. Asterisk. Asterisk. You bitch. You're going to regret this. Asterisk. I put my phone on silent, no longer paying attention to the mad dog's barking. Why should I be merciful to my enemy? In the afternoon, the doctor came to check on me, bringing new information. Ethan Price came to the hospital again. He went to the vice president of the hospital, wanting to look into your medical records and whereabouts. Dr. Evans's expression was serious. The vice president is my mentor. I managed to block him, but he won't give up easily. Also, your mother-in-law is causing a scene in the lobby downstairs, claiming the hospital is illegally detaining her daughter-in-law and demanding the police be called. Let her call them, I said. Dr. Evans was taken aback. It's better if the police come, I explained. I can report them for domestic violence directly. Even though I didn't report it at the time, now they're the ones escalating it. When the police come, they have to take a statement, file a report. A police report is official evidence. Dr. Evans looked at me, his eyes filled with a complex emotion. Miss Miller, you're really different from before. Before, I was gentle, submissive, always smiling even when I was crying inside. I thought patience would earn respect, that love could change everything. People change, Doctor. Evans, I said softly, when there's no way out, after Doctor. Evans left. I asked Nurse Davis to help me contact Mrs. Peterson. Half an hour later, the kind old woman appeared in my room, carrying a thermos of chicken soup. You poor child, you've suffered so much. She touched my hand, her eyes red. I knew from the beginning that family was no good. You were so lovely when you first moved in. In just a few years, you've become so thin. Mrs. Peterson, thank you for saving me. I held her hand tightly. But I might need your help with one more thing. Just say it, dear. If I can help, I will. The Price family might come to you, cause trouble, and ask about that night. If the police ask, please tell them the truth. You heard the beating and shouting. You saw me crawl out. But if the Price family comes, just say you don't know anything, that you went to bed early and heard nothing. Mrs. Peterson was confused. But why? I saw everything. I want to testify for you. It's not time yet, I explained patiently. I want to let them make their moves first. The higher they jump, the harder they'll fall. If we lay out all the evidence now, they'll have time to prepare their stories, maybe even try to turn it against me. I want to wait until they've backed themselves into a corner, until they've put on a full performance in front of the police and everyone else. Then, I'll drop the evidence and slap them hard. Mrs. Peterson didn't fully understand, but she nodded firmly. I'll listen to you. I'll do whatever you say. After seeing Mrs. Peterson off, it was already dark. The city lights began to twinkle, and I could see the neon signs of the distant commercial district from my window. My phone lit up again. This time, it was from my mother-in-law, Margaret. I answered but said nothing. Amelia, you listen to me. Her shrill, harsh voice came through, the background noisy as if she was still in the hospital lobby. I don't care what games you're playing. You get your ass out here right now, or I'll make you pay. You think you can just hide? Let me tell you, if my son can find you once, he can find you 100 times. I know where your parents live too. You think I won't go to the school board and tell them what kind of daughter their Teacher of the Year raised? Or show the Veterans Affairs Office what a failure your father is? I'll make sure they're ostracized from every community they belong to. I listened quietly. When she was done screaming, I said softly, Mom. The other end fell silent for a beat. In 3 years, this was the first time I had called her Mom after she broke my leg. Everything you just said, I've recorded it. My voice was calm, without a ripple. Threats and intimidation are all evidence. Please continue. Say more. I'll hand it all over to the police and my lawyer. Also, you can go make a scene at my parents' places. My father is a decorated veteran. He's highly respected at the local VFW post. My mother is an award-winning high school teacher. Who do you think people will believe? A respected veteran and a beloved teacher, or an old woman who breaks her daughter-in-law's leg and causes a scene at the hospital? Who are you calling an old woman? You bitch. I cut her off. I'm sure the executives at your son's company have already spoken to him, right? If they find out his mother has this kind of character, do you think they'll keep him at the company? After all, an employee who can't even handle his own family affairs and causes a citywide scandal, what company would dare to hire him? You dare. If you dare to make my son lose his job, I'll kill you. It was you and your son who destroyed my leg and my life first. My voice finally trembled a little, but I quickly suppressed it. Oh, and you should probably remind your son, under that online post about him, someone has already dug up a past work mistake that caused his company losses. When it rains, it pours. How many other skeletons do you think he has in his closet? There was a dead silence on the other end, only heavy, ragged breathing. One last piece of advice, I said. Stop calling, stop making scenes, quietly wait for my lawyer to contact you about the divorce. If you cooperate, I might consider not pressing charges for domestic assault. If you continue to harass me, I paused, then said, word by word, I will make sure your entire Price family is ruined and disgraced. After saying that, I hung up and blocked the number. Then, I opened my chat and sent a message to Mr. Sterling. Asterisk. We can proceed to the next step. Also, find a way to let Ethan Price's company accidentally hear the recording of his mother threatening me today. Asterisk. After sending the message, I leaned back against the headboard and looked at my thick cast. The pain was still there, but it was no longer unbearable. The day after I hung up on my mother-in-law, the HR department of Ethan's company contacted Mr. Sterling again. This time, their attitude was completely different. Mr. Sterling, regarding Mr. Ethan Price's family matter, our company in principle does not interfere. However, some untrue statements have recently appeared online, which have had a certain impact on our corporate image. The HR manager's voice came clearly through the speakerphone in the quiet hospital room. We would like to understand if Miss Amelia Miller really intends to file a police report. If so, roughly when? Mr. Sterling glanced at me. My client is indeed considering filing a report, but the specific timing depends on the attitude of Mr. Price's family. His tone was professional and distant. However, the online posts were not published by us. As a lawyer, I would suggest your company focus on whether your employees' behavior violates company regulations, rather than trying to interfere in an employee's domestic dispute. There was a few seconds of silence on the other end. I understand, but the project Ethan is in charge of is at a critical stage. If his personal problems affect his work, that is an internal matter for your company, Mr. Sterling said calmly. My client is only concerned with two things, the divorce and the legal liability for the assault. Also, a reminder, Ethan Price's mother called and threatened my client yesterday. We have saved the relevant recording. If a similar situation occurs, we will immediately report it to the police and consider making parts of the recording public. Threats? The HR manager's voice changed. Mr. Sterling, we were completely unaware of this. Now you are, Mr. Sterling said. My client hopes for a peaceful resolution, but the premise is that the other party ceases all harassment and threats. Otherwise, we will not rule out using all legal means available. After the call, Mr. Sterling put away his phone. Ethan Price won't last long at that company. They are currently bidding for a major government contract and are extremely sensitive about their social responsibility image. They will absolutely not tolerate this kind of scandal. Good. I looked down at my phone. Ethan's messages had flooded my inbox, from initial rage to later pleading, and now, panic. Asterisk Amelia, I was wrong. Can we please talk properly? The company is about to fire me. You know it wasn't easy for me to get to this position. Asterisk, Mom knows she was wrong. She was just being impulsive. Asterisk, my lawyer said we can discuss whatever you want. The house, the car, money, anything. Asterisk, don't destroy me. I'm begging you. Asterisk. I didn't reply to a single one. In the afternoon, an unexpected visitor arrived. My father-in-law, Robert Price. He came alone, holding a get-well card awkwardly, looking a bit awkward at the door. Nurse Davis was about to stop him, but I shook my head. Let him in. Robert came in, placed the fruit basket on the nightstand, and stood at the foot of the bed without sitting down. He looked much older than he did 3 days ago, with swollen bags under his eyes and a slight stoop in his back. Amelia, he began, his voice hoarse. How's your leg? You can see for yourself. It's broken, in a cast. I can't get out of bed for 3 months, I said calmly. I might have a limp for the rest of my life. His facial muscles twitched. He looked down, not daring to meet my eyes. That day, I couldn't stop your mother. You couldn't stop her? I corrected him. Or you felt that teaching me a lesson was a good thing? Your son thought so too, didn't he? Robert opened his mouth, but ultimately said nothing. The room was silent for a long time, the sound of traffic from outside, making it feel even more desolate. Amelia. He finally spoke again, his voice lower. Do you have to get a divorce? Ethan. He knows he was wrong. He really knows. Look, he's about to lose his job. That's a big enough blow. And your mother, Margaret, she regrets it too. She just has a hot temper. She's not a bad person at heart. We're a family. What can't we get through? Why do we have to make it so ugly with a divorce? I looked at him. The man who, in my memory, was always quiet and subservient to my mother-in-law, now had a face full of exhaustion and fear. He wasn't regretting my broken leg, nor was he regretting his son's violence. He was afraid of the scandal, of his son losing his job, of the Price family losing face. A family? I repeated the word, letting out a soft laugh. Dad, in the past 3 years, have you ever truly considered me part of the family? Robert was stunned. The first year I married into your family, you pressured me into that joint account, claiming it was for my own good. Did you say anything? Every day after work, I had to cook, wash dishes, clean the house, and serve all 3 of you. If I did anything to displease your wife, I was scolded. Did you ever try to reason with her? When I was pregnant and then had a miscarriage and was in the hospital, your wife called me useless. Did you ever comfort me? This time, when my leg was broken and I was lying on the floor, you stood right there and watched. At that moment, did you see me as family? I asked a series of questions. My voice wasn't loud, but each word was like a nail hammered into Robert's face. His face grew paler and paler, beads of sweat forming on his forehead. I thought, he stammered, I thought those were issues between a mother-in-law and a daughter-in-law, between you two. It wasn't my place to interfere. Not your place to interfere? Or you simply didn't care? I cut him off. In your eyes, I was never family. In your eyes, I was never family. Just a servant you acquired through marriage, to wait on you, to breed for you, and to pay your bills, right? No, Amelia, how can you say that? Robert seemed to have been hit where it hurt, his voice rising. Hasn't our Price family treated you well? We gave you food, clothes. Ethan hasn't cheated on you. Why are you so ungrateful? Gave me food and clothes? I almost laughed out loud. My salary is double Ethan's. For the past 3 years, I've given all my earnings to you. The mortgage on the house you're living in, I paid it every month. More than half of the household expenses came from me. Who was supporting whom? Robert was speechless. Father, I changed how I addressed him, my voice growing colder. You came today to plead on behalf of your son and your wife, to ask me not to get a divorce, not to call the police, not to escalate things, right? He hesitated for a moment, then nodded. All right, then I'll give you a clear answer. I looked him straight in the eye, saying word by word, I am getting a divorce. I will hold them accountable for the domestic violence. As for whether to escalate things, that depends on your future behavior. If you agree to a divorce settlement, return my salary for the past 3 years, my share of the mortgage payments, and compensate me for emotional distress, all calculated clearly, I might consider not pressing charges. If you don't agree, or if you continue to harass me and my family, I paused. I will not only call the police, I will post all the evidence online. I will go to Ethan's company, to your apartment complex, to every place where people know you, and tell every single person how the Price family broke their daughter-in-law's leg and then threatened her. By then, do you think your son losing his job will be worse? Or the Price family being unable to live in this city will be worse? Robert took a step back, as if he was meeting me for the first time. His lips trembled, his finger pointing at me. You're vicious. Amelia, I never knew you could be so vicious. Vicious? I smiled, a smile that brought tears to my eyes. When my leg was broken, when I might have to limp for the rest of my life, you didn't think that was vicious? When I was lying on the cold floor while your whole family was in the living room eating and watching TV, you didn't think anyone was vicious? When I called out for help, and your son said, "This is your punishment for not listening," you didn't think that was vicious? This viciousness of mine, I wiped a tear, my voice as cold as ice, was taught to me, piece by piece, by your Price family? Robert finally stumbled away. The fruit basket left on the nightstand was like a clumsy joke. Nurse Davis came in and quietly picked up the fruit basket. "I'll throw this out for you." "No need," I said. "Take it to your colleagues at the nurses' station and share it. Just say my father-in-law sent it as a get-well gift." Nurse Davis looked at me, wanting to say something but hesitating. "Do you think I'm being too cruel?" I asked. She shook her head, then nodded. "I just think you've become very strong, completely different from the day you were brought in. Because I don't want to die anymore." I looked out the window. The sunlight was beautiful. Lying on that kitchen floor, waiting to die, I suddenly figured something out. Why do bad people always get their way? Because good people are always reflecting on themselves, always considering the bigger picture, always being patient. Bad people never think about these things. They just want to take, and if they're not happy, they get violent. When things go wrong, they shirk responsibility. So, if they really agree to a divorce and compensation, you won't call the police? Nurse Davis asked. "Calling the police is a certainty," I said calmly. "Domestic violence is a criminal offense, not something that can be erased with a little money. But how and when I report it is up to me. As for the compensation, that's what they owe me, not charity." Nurse Davis didn't fully understand, but she nodded firmly. "Either way, I support you. If you need anything, just let me know." That evening, Mr. Sterling brought the latest news. Ethan Price has agreed to a divorce settlement. He said the conditions are that you don't press charges, don't call the police, and don't make any more information public. As for assets, he's willing to give you the house, since you've been paying the mortgage anyway. He's also offering to compensate you with $30,000. $30,000? I laughed. My salary and bonuses for the past 3 years, all in their hands, exceed $90,000. The current market value of the house is only about $75,000 more than the outstanding loan, and it's a marital asset. He broke my leg, which could cause a lifelong disability. Emotional distress, medical expenses, lost wages. He wants to settle all that for $30,000? This is just his first offer. We can negotiate, Mr. Sterling said, but he's demanding it be settled as soon as possible, preferably before you're discharged. He seems to be in a hurry. Of course he's in a hurry. I opened my phone and showed Mr. Sterling screenshots from Ethan's company's internal forum. Someone had anonymously posted more details, including how Ethan had previously used his position to accept kickbacks and falsify invoices. The amounts weren't huge, but at this sensitive time, it was a fatal blow. His company has given him an ultimatum. Mr. Sterling understood immediately. Either he resigns gracefully, or he gets fired. If he's fired, given the current job market in his industry, it will be very difficult for him to find a comparable position. So he needs to settle things with you quickly, then go to his company and claim the domestic dispute has been peacefully resolved to try to keep his job, or at least get a decent severance package. So what's your plan? Stall, I said. Just one word. Stall for time. Don't agree. Don't refuse. Just say my injuries are severe and I need time to think. At the same time, let the news online ferment for a few more days. Wait until his company can't wait any longer and fires him. That's when he'll truly be at a dead end. I looked at Mr. Sterling. What I want isn't a house with decades of mortgage payments left, nor is it $30,000. What I want is for him to taste what despair feels like. Mr. Sterling looked at me deeply, then finally nodded. I understand, but stalling for too long has its risks. What if he becomes desperate? That's why the recording of his mother threatening me can accidentally fall into the hands of his company's leadership, I said. Let them know the Price family not only engages in domestic violence but also threatens the victim. That way, the company will cut ties with him even faster to protect themselves. Mr. Sterling noted the key points, stood up to leave, then paused. Miss Miller, there's something I'm not sure if I should ask. Go ahead. How long can the satisfaction of revenge last? He asked bluntly. After the divorce, you have a long life ahead of you. Is it worth spending so much time and energy on these people? I was silent for a long time. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the horizon a blood red. Mr. Sterling, this isn't about revenge, I said softly. This is so that in the future, every night when I wake up from a nightmare and touch this leg that may never be the same again, I can tell myself that I did everything I could. I made the person who hurt me pay the price. Only then can I truly move on, instead of being trapped forever in that kitchen on that night. Mr. Sterling nodded, said no more, and left. The room was quiet again. I took out my phone and sent a message to my parents, telling them I was fine. My mother replied quickly, saying, "The apartment is rented. The lawyer has been paid. Just focus on your recovery. Don't be afraid of anything. Mom and Dad will always be here for you." The last sentence made my eyes well up. That's right. I had support. I wasn't alone. And Ethan Price would soon discover that the wife he thought he could control and trample on at will had a power behind her that he could never have imagined. The news that Ethan Price had agreed to a divorce settlement was like a stone thrown into a pond, creating ripples I hadn't expected. The next afternoon, I received a call from my mother-in-law, Margaret, from a new number. Her voice was unusually tired, even laced with a hint of pleading I had never heard before. "Amelia," she began, making me think for a second she had dialed the wrong number. "I want to talk to you." I said nothing, waiting for her to continue. "Look, Ethan knows he was wrong. He really knows. He's giving you the house and compensating you. Can't we just part on good terms? Why do we have to drag this through the courts and become a laughingstock?" She paused, her voice lowering. "I'm sorry. I was wrong that day. I was just so angry. You know my temper. I can't control it when I get worked up. But you were also in the wrong, weren't you? If you had just humored me a little, I wouldn't have. I'm sorry." I cut her off softly. "Are you talking about breaking my leg?" The other end went silent. "If that's what you're talking about, I don't accept your apology." My voice was very calm, without even a trace of anger. "An apology is for an unintentional mistake. You took a rolling pin and hit me once, twice, 3 times, until my bone broke. That's intentional assault. If I had had a knife in my hand at that moment, who do you think would be lying in the hospital right now? What are you saying?" Her pretense shattered in an instant, her voice becoming shrill again. "Amelia, I'm trying to be nice to you, aren't I? Let me tell you, don't push your luck. Giving you the house is already generous. What more do you want? Do you really think the Price family is afraid of you? Then let's not negotiate," I said. "Let Mr. Sterling talk to you. And by the way, the recording of you threatening me yesterday, I've already given it to my lawyer. If I receive any more harassing calls, or if my parents are disturbed, that recording will immediately appear on the desks of the police and the executives at Ethan's company." "You recorded me? You bitch! You dared to record me!" she shrieked. "Why wouldn't I?" I asked. "You dare to beat someone. What's wrong with me recording it? And another thing, don't let me hear the word bitch again, or I'll show you what a bitch who's been pushed to the edge can do." I hung up. A few minutes later, the phone rang again. This time, it was Ethan, using another new number. "Amelia, what the hell do you want?" His voice was hoarse, filled with exhaustion and a drunken rage. "Mom apologized to you. We're giving you the house. We're giving you money. What more do you want? Do you have to drive my entire family to our deaths before you're satisfied?" "Ethan," I leaned against the headboard, looking at my cast. "Are you in pain right now?" He was taken aback. "The company is talking to me. I might lose my job. Does that feel painful?" Your mom has to humble herself and apologize. Does that feel painful? Your dad is caught in the middle. Does that feel painful? I asked, one question after another. So I'm telling you, I cut him off. For the past 3 years, every single day of my life has been 100 times more painful than what you're feeling now. When I was lying on the kitchen floor with a broken leg, listening to your whole family eating and laughing in the living room, I was in 10,000 times more pain. Ethan, this is just the beginning. What you did to me, I'm going to return it to you, bit by bit. I heard ragged breathing on the other end, then the sound of something shattering. He was breaking things. You're crazy. Amelia, you're a psycho, he yelled. Yes, you all drove me crazy, I laughed. Enjoy it. It's not over yet. I hung up again, blocked the number. The world was quiet again, but I knew this was just a short-lived lull. Neither Ethan nor his mother were people who would take things lying down, especially Margaret, who was used to being domineering. This time, hitting a wall with me, she would absolutely not let it go. Sure enough, that afternoon, Nurse Davis rushed in, her face pale. Amelia, your mother-in-law is here again, downstairs. This time, she brought 2 other people. They look like relatives. They're causing a scene in the lobby, demanding to see you, saying the hospital is hiding you, and they want an explanation. The security guards are trying to stop them, but they're making a huge fuss, crying and screaming, and a large crowd has gathered. What about security? The guards are there, but they're just lying on the floor. Doctor, Evans has already reported it to the hospital administration, but this is terrible for the hospital's image. And it seems they know you're roughly on this floor. They're blocking the elevators and stairs, asking everyone they see where Amelia from room 304 is. I frowned. It seemed Robert's visit yesterday had revealed some information, or Ethan really did have a connection at the hospital. What exactly are they saying? They're saying you're mentally unstable, that you have violent tendencies, that you beat your mother-in-law at home and then self-harmed, and now you're hiding in the hospital to frame them, Nurse Davis said, indignant on my behalf. It's all lies. Call the police, I said. Huh? Call the police. Say someone is disturbing the peace at the hospital and slandering a patient, I said calmly. Let the police handle it. But when the police come, they'll surely say, let them talk, I cut her off. The more they say, the better. Nurse Davis, please use your phone to record them making a scene downstairs. Especially the parts where they say I beat people and self-harmed. Don't miss a single word. Nurse Davis's eyes lit up. I understand. Evidence. Right. Also, inform Dr. Evans and the administration office. The hospital doesn't need to handle this. Let the police deal with it. If the police need me, I can cooperate, but I won't see them before that. Nurse Davis nodded and hurried off. I took out my phone and texted Mr. Sterling. Asterisk. The Price family is causing a scene at the hospital. I've called the police. Get ready. We can initiate the next step. Asterisk, Mr. Sterling replied quickly. Asterisk, understood. Documents are prepared and can be released at any time. Asterisk. Half an hour later, the sound of police sirens came from downstairs. Another 20 minutes, and everything was quiet again. Nurse Davis returned, excitedly holding up her phone. I got it all. Your mother-in-law, she said every nasty thing you can imagine. She even lay on the floor and pretended the hospital staff hit her. Even when the police came, she kept it up. She only got up when they threatened to arrest her, but the police still took them away, said they were going to the station for mediation. What about the 2 people she brought? They claimed to be your relatives, an aunt and a cousin. At first, they were chiming in, but when they saw the police were serious, they backed off, quickly denying any involvement, saying they were just dragged along for support. Nurse Davis pouted. Talk about fair-weather relatives. As expected, a family like the Prices wouldn't have any genuine relatives. What did the police say? They said they would take a report. They have your information and said they might need you to come to the station to give a statement once you're feeling better. Nurse Davis paused, but the police seemed a bit biased towards them. The police seemed reluctant to get involved. They said without video evidence of the assault itself, it's basically a he said, she said situation. They documented the disturbance, but said unless there's an active threat, They can't arrest an elderly woman for yelling. I laughed coldly. A family matter again. Understanding again. Domestic violence is never just a family matter. It's a crime. But too many people, including some law enforcement officers, still have this mindset that it's hard to judge family disputes, and they prefer to mediate. It's fine, I said. I have plenty of patience. That evening, another unexpected visitor arrived. It was Ethan's direct supervisor, Mr. Harrison. He was in his 40s, dressed in a sharp suit, holding a cup of coffee, looking a bit embarrassed at the door. Miss Miller, I apologize for the intrusion. I'm the department director for Ethan Price. My name is Harrison. I had Nurse Davis let him in. Mr. Harrison, please have a seat. I motioned to a chair. Mr. Harrison stood at the foot of the bed, wringing his hands. Miss Miller, I've heard about your situation. First, on behalf of the company, I'd like to extend my sympathies. We are all very sorry that this has happened. Thank you. I nodded, waiting for him to continue. Ethan, he's a capable employee, but he clearly has issues with handling his family relationships. Mr. Harrison chose his words carefully. The company has always valued him, but recently his performance has been very poor, with repeated mistakes. Plus, the public opinion outside has had a very negative impact on our company's image. So, I asked bluntly. My directness seemed to startle him, and he gave a wry smile. Let me be frank. The company hopes this matter can be resolved quickly. If you two can reach a peaceful settlement, divorce amicably, without escalating the situation further, the company might consider letting Ethan resign gracefully, with a full severance package. But if this continues to escalate and affects the government contract we're bidding for, the company may be forced to take some stricter measures. I understood. Ethan was a pawn. The company wanted to protect the project. If I was willing to let it go, the company would let him leave with some dignity. If I pushed it, the company would fire him, maybe even investigate his past issues to distance themselves. Mr. Harrison, I understand the company's position, I said slowly, but I am the victim. I am the one with the broken leg. Ethan and his family have yet to offer me a sincere apology. Instead, they came to the hospital to cause a scene and slander me as mentally unstable. Do you think I should endure all this for the sake of your company's project? Mr. Harrison looked even more embarrassed. Of course not. An apology is necessary. Compensation is necessary. My point is, resolving this within a reasonable scope is better for both parties. After all, you were married. Making things too ugly isn't necessarily good for your future either, right? A combination of carrot and stick. First, sympathy, then hinting at the company's pressure, and finally, advice that sounded like it was for my own good. Unfortunately, I wasn't buying it. Mr. Harrison, my demands are very simple. I looked at him. First, Ethan must publicly admit to his abusive behavior in writing and apologize. Second, he must compensate me according to legal standards, including medical expenses, lost wages, emotional distress, and the salary I earned over the past 3 years that they controlled. Third, he and his family must never harass me or my family again. If he can meet these 3 points, I can consider not pressing charges and not escalating the situation. Mr. Harrison's expression changed. A public admission? Isn't that a bit too much? Ethan still has to work in this industry in the future. That's his problem. I cut him off. He should have thought about the consequences when he acted. If he doesn't even have the courage to admit his mistakes, why should he expect my forgiveness? Miss Miller. Mr. Harrison, you should leave. I dismissed him. This is my bottom line. If Ethan agrees, have him contact Mr. Sterling. If he doesn't, then we'll see each other in court. As for whether your company wants to fire him or keep him, that's your internal affair and has nothing to do with me. Mr. Harrison stood there, his face turning red and white. Finally, he sighed, put down the fruit basket, and said, Then please rest well, Miss Miller. I will convey your message to Ethan. He walked to the door, then turned back, as if wanting to say something else. Is there anything else? I asked. Miss Miller, you've changed a lot, he finally said. I met you a few times before. You were always a very gentle person. People change. I repeated what I had said to Dr. Evans. When gentleness is not met with respect, but with escalating harm, you have no choice but to pick up a weapon, Mr. Harrison gave me a deep look, said nothing more, and left. After he was gone, Nurse Davis whispered, "That Mr. Harrison seems reasonable." "He's not reasonable." I shook my head. He just weighed the pros and cons and chose the most beneficial option for himself and his company. If Ethan were an indispensable talent for the company today, or if my family were weak and easily bullied, he might have shown a different face. That's just human nature. That's just reality. So you can't rely on others' kindness. You can only make yourself stronger. That night, Mr. Sterling sent over a file. It was detailed evidence of Ethan's kickbacks and falsified invoices, which had been anonymously sent to his company's disciplinary department and the IRS. There was also a complaint letter written in the name of an insider, detailing how Ethan used his position for personal gain, deceived his superiors, and how a person of such character could not possibly represent the company in a government project. Asterisk, tomorrow morning, these documents will appear where they need to appear. The video of your mother-in-law causing a scene at the hospital today, I've edited it a bit. I'll post it later on several popular local forums and short video platforms. Asterisk, Mr. Sterling texted. Asterisk. The title will be, Vicious Mother-in-Law Wreaks Havoc in Hospital, Slanders Injured Daughter-in-Law as Mentally Ill to Cover Up Domestic Abuse. Should I post it? Asterisk, asterisk. Post it. Asterisk, I replied. The moment I hit send, I felt no hesitation, nor the vengeful pleasure I had imagined, only a cold calm. I knew this would push the Price family completely into a corner. They would go crazy. They would fight back. They would do more extreme things. But I was no longer afraid. There was a time I was afraid of losing my marriage, of being pointed at, of disappointing my parents, of facing an unknown future. But now, the marriage was just shackles. The pointing fingers had never stopped. My parents were my solid support, and no matter how bad the future was, it couldn't be worse than lying on that kitchen floor, waiting to die. Late that night, my phone lit up again. This time, it was a text from Ethan, just one line, but it made my pupils contract. Asterisk, Amelia, you want to play? I'll play with you to the end. Your father is a veteran at the VFW, right? Your mother is a high school teacher, right? What do you think they'll think if they find out what their precious daughter has been up to? Asterisk. It had come. When the facade was completely torn away, when the mask of dignity could no longer be maintained, they finally bared their ugliest fangs. Threatening me by attacking my weakness, my parents, I stared at the text for a long time. Then I slowly typed a reply, each word pressed hard. Asterisk. Ethan, let me tell you something too. If my parents suffer any harm because of this, even if it's just a single harassing phone call, I will show you what it really means to play to the end. You and your whole family, not a single one of you will escape. Don't believe me? Just try. Asterisk, I hit send. Ethan's threat was like a venomous snake baring its fangs in the dead of night. I didn't immediately inform my parents. They were older. My father had a heart condition, and my mother had high blood pressure. A sudden shock could be dangerous. Besides, I believed Ethan was, for the moment, just bluffing. He was already overwhelmed with his own problems, and likely didn't have the energy to actually do anything to my parents. But we must be prepared. I texted Mr. Sterling, briefly explaining the situation. He replied quickly, Asterisk, understood. I'll contact friends in your hometown to keep an eye on the situation around your parents' house. Also, I suggest your parents temporarily take a leave of absence and stay with relatives to avoid the trouble. Asterisk. I accepted the second suggestion. I called my mother, trying to sound as casual as possible. The Price family might get desperate and make harassing calls. Tell Dad to block calls from unknown numbers. Maybe go stay with Uncle for a few days. Amelia, did something happen? My mother's voice was full of worry. Did they bother you again? No, I'm just being cautious. I tried to keep my voice steady. I can only be at ease if you and Dad are safe. Oh, and Dad's old army buddy, Mr. Thompson. Isn't he a captain in the local police department? If it's convenient, maybe just briefly mention the situation to him. He doesn't need to do anything, just so he's aware. My mother was silent for a few seconds. Amelia, tell me the truth. What exactly are you doing? I know you're angry, you're hurt, but don't do anything foolish. Don't get yourself into trouble. I won't, Mom. I held the phone tightly. I'm just taking back what's mine and making them pay the price they deserve. Within the bounds of the law, I won't cross any lines. After hanging up, I looked out at the pitch-black night, the city that never sleeps, its distant skyscrapers blinking like countless cold eyes. Asterisk Ethan, you want to play dirty? Fine. I'm ready. Asterisk. The next morning, Nurse Davis brought breakfast, her expression a little strange. Amelia, have you seen the news? What news? She handed me her phone. The local city news app had a push notification. The headline caught my eye. Family of public employee, suspected of domestic abuse, online rumors spark controversy. The article was carefully worded, avoiding naming Ethan directly, but hinting that the abuser was a family member of an employee at a certain public utility company. It also quoted anonymous netizen comments suggesting the victim's mental state was unstable and her account might not be truthful. It ended by calling for a rational view of online information to avoid harming innocent people. Nurse Davis was red with anger. They're twisting the facts. They must have paid off the media. Not paid off. I calmly finished reading. It's pressure. Ethan's father, Robert Price, was a minor department head at the Department of Transportation before he retired. Even though he's retired, he still has some connections. It's not surprising he'd use those connections to find a friendly media outlet, to publish a balanced report, to buy his son some breathing room. So, what do we do? Just let them slander you like this? Why are you so anxious? I put the phone down. This kind of vague report can't hurt me. On the contrary, it will only infuriate those who know the truth. Sure enough, before noon, the comments section of that article exploded. Countless anonymous accounts flooded in. Some directly named Ethan Price and his company. Some posted screenshots of him being disciplined internally at work, the work of Mr. Sterling. Someone even posted the video of Margaret lying on the floor and making a scene in the hospital lobby yesterday. Asterisk. I'm a security guard at City General Hospital. I can testify. The old woman in the video is the vicious mother-in-law who beat her daughter-in-law and then came to the hospital to cause trouble. Asterisk. Asterisk. Ethan Price is my former colleague. This guy is a known cheapskate and has a history of harassing female colleagues. He's been reported several times. Asterisk. Asterisk. The victim is my neighbor. She's an incredibly gentle person. After marrying into the Price family 3 years ago, she's been tormented into a shadow of her former self. I once heard her mother-in-law call her a barren hen. They're truly inhuman. Asterisk, asterisk. I support her in calling the police. No tolerance for domestic violence. Asterisk. Public opinion completely tilted in my favor. The article that tried to whitewash the situation had backfired, becoming a catalyst that made the situation ferment even faster. In the afternoon, Mr. Sterling brought 2 pieces of news. One good, one bad. The good news. Ethan's company couldn't withstand the pressure and officially released a statement. Employee Mr. P, due to personal family issues that have seriously affected his work and the company's reputation, has been terminated, effective immediately. They also hinted at cooperating with authorities to investigate his financial issues during his employment. This meant Ethan not only lost his job, but could also face an investigation for embezzlement. The bad news. Ethan has lost his mind. He called me, Mr. Sterling's voice was grave. He said if you don't sign a divorce agreement on his terms and remove all the posts online within 3 days, he will bring a gas can to your parents' house and take everyone down with him. The hospital room fell silent in an instant. Nurse Davis gasped. He's insane. That's a blatant death threat. We have to call the police. I remained silent. Ethan's madness was within my expectations, but it had also exceeded them. I thought he might make threats, but I didn't expect it to be this extreme. Miss Miller, I suggest we report this to the police immediately and request a restraining order to protect your parents, Mr. Sterling said seriously. This is not a joke. He's lost his job, his reputation is in tatters, and he might even face legal prosecution. He's completely lost his mind. A person like that is capable of anything. Of course we have to call the police, I said slowly. But what then? Can the police protect my parents 24/7? Can they detain him before he actually commits a crime? A threat like, "I'm going to kill you," without any concrete action, is very difficult for the police to act on with coercive measures. At most, it will be a verbal warning and a lecture. Mr. Sterling fell silent. He knew I was right. So, what do we do? Nurse Davis was frantic. We can't just let him. He won't dare. I cut her off, my voice surprisingly calm. Ethan is extremely selfish. He values his own life above all else. Taking everyone down with him, he doesn't have the guts. This is just a desperate attempt to terrorize me into backing down. But what if? There is no what if. I looked at them. Mr. Sterling, please transcribe the recording of his threat into a written document and package it with the previous evidence of abuse, the video of the hospital scene, and the documents about his financial issues. Nurse Davis, please help me contact Dr. Evans. I want an early discharge. Discharge? Your leg still can't move, Nurse Davis exclaimed. In a wheelchair, I said. I have to show my face. Hiding in the hospital will make him think I'm scared, which will only make him bolder. I want him to see that I'm not afraid of him, that I have nothing left to lose. A person with nothing to fear is the most frightening person of all. Mr. Sterling looked at me deeply. Miss Miller, what are you planning to do? Hold a small press conference, I said, right here in a hospital conference room. We don't need many people, just 2 or 3 influential local media outlets. I'm not going to cry or play the victim. I'm just going to calmly state the facts, present the evidence, including Ethan's latest death threat. Then, I'm going to call the police, right there, on the spot. Nurse Davis and Mr. Sterling were stunned. You want to blow this up completely? Mr. Sterling asked. I don't want to blow it up. He's forcing me to. I corrected him. He's trying to use his madness to hide his fear. Well, I'm going to show him what real madness looks like. When he finds that his threats are useless and only serve to incriminate himself, that's when he'll truly be afraid. But your safety. The hospital is a public place, with security, with media present. He wouldn't dare do anything. Besides, I paused. I need to turn public opinion completely. When everyone knows that Ethan Price is not only an abuser but also a would-be murderer, he will become a social pariah. He'll be too busy hiding to have the energy to hurt anyone else. The press conference was scheduled for the afternoon of the 3rd day. During this time, Ethan sent several more frantic, threatening messages. One night, he called, drunk, screaming into the phone that he knew which hospital I was hiding in and that he would make me die a horrible death. I recorded every message, every call, and gave them to Mr. Sterling. My parents were safely at my uncle's house. My father's old army buddy, Captain Thompson, after learning about the situation, had arranged for 2 plainclothes officers to keep an eye on the area around my uncle's house. My mother cried several times on the phone, but ultimately chose to trust and support me. Amelia, all I need is for you to be safe, she said, her voice choked with emotion. Nothing else matters. No, it does matter, I said. Safety is important, but so is dignity. If I back down this time, I will live under the shadow of the Price family's terror for the rest of my life, and you and Dad will never have a peaceful day. On the morning of the press conference, Dr. Evans personally came to check on my leg. It's healing well, but absolutely no weight bearing. Be careful even in the wheelchair to avoid a second injury. He frowned. Miss Miller, are you sure you want to do this? Public opinion is already on your side. There's no need to personally appear and escalate the conflict. Dr. Evans, how much more can the conflict be escalated? I asked calmly. He's already threatened to take a gas can and die with my family. If I don't show my face, he'll think I'm scared, and he'll become even more reckless. Only by letting him see that his threats have no effect on me, that they'll only make him a clown in front of everyone, will he stop, Doctor. Evans sighed and didn't try to persuade me further. He just had the nurse prepare some painkillers and a mild sedative for me, just in case. At 2 p.m., in a small hospital conference room, reporters from 3 local media outlets were present, along with 2 enthusiastic citizen representatives. They were the rational voices who had supported me online and had proactively contacted Mr. Sterling, hoping to witness the event firsthand. I sat in a wheelchair, my left leg in a thick cast, pushed into the room by Nurse Davis. I wore no makeup, just a loose-fitting hospital gown. My face was pale from blood loss and pain, but my back was straight, and my gaze was calm as I scanned everyone present. I didn't cry. I didn't tell a sob story. I didn't angrily condemn them. I just used the calmest voice possible to narrate the facts. 3 years of marriage, the extreme control of my in-laws, my husband's progression from indifference to complicity, the long-term emotional abuse and financial control, the process of having my leg broken, the night I was abandoned and ignored, and the subsequent threats, harassment, slander, and the latest death threat. With each segment, Mr. Sterling presented the corresponding evidence: X-rays, forensic medical reports, audio recordings, screenshots of text messages, hospital security footage, the video of Margaret causing a scene at the hospital, the termination notice from Ethan's company, and even the article that tried to whitewash the situation. Finally, I played the latest recording of Ethan's phone call. His drunken, slurred voice, full of vicious curses and death threats, echoed through the speakers in the quiet room. "Amelia, you destroyed me. You won't get to live a good life either. I know where your parents are. If I can't find you, you think I can't find them? At worst, we all die together." The recording ended. The room was deathly silent. The reporters were scribbling furiously. The 2 citizen representatives had faces full of anger. "The above is everything I have experienced in the past half-month," I began, my voice a little hoarse but very clear. "I'm holding this press conference today not to seek sympathy, nor to incite public opinion. I just want to tell Mr. Ethan Price, and everyone who thinks like him, domestic violence is not a family matter, it's a crime. Threats and intimidation will not silence the victim. They will only make the hammer of justice fall faster and harder." I paused, my gaze landing on a female reporter. "Miss Wallace, I remember you once reported on the domestic violence statistics in our city. On average, for every 10 domestic violence calls to the police, only 1 case ultimately enters the judicial process. Why is that?" The female reporter was taken aback, then immediately replied, "It's difficult to gather evidence. Victims often choose to endure or withdraw their complaints due to fear, economic dependence, or for the sake of keeping the family together." "Exactly," I nodded, "because abusers are often reckless, while victims have too many concerns. But today, I want to use my experience to tell everyone, don't be afraid. Save the evidence. If reporting to the police once doesn't work, then do it twice. If one agency doesn't handle it, find another. In this society, there will always be a place for reason, and the law will always be there to protect you." After saying that, I turned to Mr. Sterling and nodded. He took a step forward, holding his phone up to the cameras. "Right now, on behalf of my client, Miss Amelia Miller, I am officially calling 911 to report Ethan Price and his mother, Margaret Price, for intentional assault, false imprisonment, and making terroristic threats, and I will submit all related evidence." He pressed the call button and put it on speaker. Asterisk, beep, beep, beep. Asterisk, 911. What's your emergency? A clear female voice came from the speaker. All the cameras in the room focused on that phone. "Hello, I'd like to report a crime." Mr. Sterling's voice was steady and clear. He reported his name, ID number, the location of the incident, the process, and the names and ID numbers of Ethan Price and Margaret Price. The entire reporting process took about 5 minutes. The operator took down all the information in detail and said that police would be dispatched immediately to the Price's home and the hospital where I was to investigate and gather evidence. The call ended. The room was silent for a few seconds. Then applause broke out. First, it was the female reporter. Then the others joined in. The applause wasn't thunderous, but it was long and sustained. I didn't smile, nor did I cry. I just felt that the massive rock that had been crushing my heart for 3 years had finally been lifted, just enough to let in a crack of light. The content of the press conference appeared on local news sites and social media that very evening, in the form of articles, photos, and edited videos. The headlines were more direct than the last. Wife with broken leg publicly accuses. Husband of domestic abuse calls 911 on-site. Death threat recording exposed. Abusive husband frantically screams, "We'll die together." She is no longer silent. The powerful counterattack of a domestic abuse survivor. Public opinion was completely ignited. The names of Ethan Price and Margaret Price, along with their photos taken from wedding pictures and Ethan's company's public events, were shared countless times. The comments were filled with curses and condemnation. The connections of Ethan's father were now completely useless. Some people even began to dig into whether he had any issues before he retired. And what was the Price family doing while all this was happening? According to the limited information Mr. Sterling could get from the police, the case was under investigation, so details were scarce. After receiving the report, the police had split up and gone to the Price's home and the hospital within an hour. At the Price's home, Margaret had initially tried to make a scene but had reluctantly agreed to be questioned after a stern warning from the police. Ethan was not home, and his phone was off. Robert Price just kept repeating family matter, misunderstanding, and daughter-in-law is mentally unstable. At the hospital, the police took a detailed statement from me, collected copies of all the evidence I provided, and left me their contact information, telling me to be careful and call them immediately if anything happened. After the police left, I leaned back in my wheelchair, feeling a sense of exhaustion. Not from fear, but from a string that had been pulled too tight for too long and was now finally slackening a bit. Nurse Davis poured me a glass of warm water and whispered, "Ethan's father came just now. He was blocked by security downstairs and wasn't allowed up. He said he wanted to see you one last time, to talk privately." "I'm not seeing him." I shook my head. "Tell security that no one from the Price family is allowed near my room. If they try to force their way in, call the police directly." "Understood." Robert waited downstairs for a long time, until it was completely dark, before leaving. I didn't know what he wanted to say, nor did I want to know. It would have been just more threats, enticements, a mix of carrot and stick, but we were long past the stage where talking could solve anything. At 9 p.m., my phone rang. It was a completely unknown local number. I answered but said nothing. The other end was a long silence, only heavy breathing. Then, Ethan's voice, hoarse and dry, as if forced from his throat. "Amelia, you won." I didn't respond. My job is gone. My friends, my relatives, they're all laughing at me. My dad's entire social circle at the yacht club is whispering behind his back. People from the VFW are calling him a disgrace to the uniform. You've turned our family into a national tabloid story. My mom has high blood pressure and can't get out of bed. Are you satisfied now? His voice was filled with a broken numbness. What do you want? My life? I told you what I wanted a long time ago. I finally spoke, my voice calm, without a ripple. An apology, compensation, and for you to never bother me again. It was you who refused to give me any of it, and instead escalated things with threats and intimidation. You chose this path for yourselves. An apology, compensation, he repeated, then suddenly laughed. The sound was uglier than crying. And then what? I become a domestic abuser. My life is ruined. And you're the victim. You're innocent. You take my money and start a new life. Amelia, you're a brilliant schemer. A schemer? I laughed too, a laugh full of irony. Ethan, if I were really a schemer, I wouldn't have married you 3 years ago. If I were really a schemer, I would have left the first time I was verbally abused. If I were really a schemer, the night my leg was broken, I would have called the police instead of crawling outside for help. Was my scheme to have my mother-in-law beat me until my leg was broken and lie on the floor waiting to die? He was speechless. I'll say this one last time. I reined in all my emotions, my voice turning to steel. A public written apology, compensation according to legal standards, and disappear forever from my life and my family's lives. Do that, we get divorced, and I'll drop the charges. If not, then we'll see each other in court. And by the way, your mother can have a taste of what prison is like. You know, Intentional assault leading to minor disability can result in jail time. Your mother is old. I wonder if she can handle it. You dare! What wouldn't I dare? I retorted. I've already died once. What's left to be afraid of? Ethan, the choice is in your hands. Do you want your dignity or your freedom? Do you want that little bit of money? Or do you want your mother to stay out of prison? You decide. With that, I hung up and added the new number to my block list. Then I deleted the call history. There was no need to record anymore. What needed to be said had been said. The final chance had been given. All that was left was to wait for the result. I knew Ethan wouldn't give up so easily. A person like him, even at the edge of a cliff, would desperately grasp at the last straw, even if that straw was an illusion. But I was in no hurry. The police had opened a case. Public opinion was boiling over. His social death had begun. And I was in a hospital bed, with doctors and nurses caring for me, a lawyer protecting me, public opinion supporting me, and my parents as my backup. Time was on my side. Late that night, I had Nurse Davis adjust the bed so I could sit up and look out the window. The city lights were the same as always, the city I had come to for love, the city that had given me 3 years of nightmares. At this moment, in my eyes, it was finally no longer so cold and alien. At least the hospital here had saved my life. At least the nurses here had given me warmth. At least the police here had taken my case. The media here had given me a voice. And there was Mrs. Peterson, and the strangers I had never met who supported me online. The world wasn't as dark as the Price family had made it seem. There were always rays of light that would shine in when you were at your most desperate. My phone screen lit up. It was a text from my mother. Asterisk, Amelia, are you asleep yet? I made some soup for you. I had someone bring it over. It'll be there tomorrow morning. Don't think about anything. Just rest and get well. I'm always here. Asterisk. I stared at the message for a long, long time. Then I turned off the light. In the darkness, I let the tears fall silently. These were not tears of grievance, not tears of pain. They were tears of finally being able to breathe freely. Tears of finally seeing the light. Tears of finally no longer being afraid. I knew this battle was far from over. The final counterattack from the Price family might be even more insane than I imagined. But I was no longer afraid. The broken bone would heal. It might leave a scar, but it would be stronger. The broken heart would also slowly mend. It would carry scars, but it would be wiser. And those who committed violence would ultimately pay the price for their crimes. This was a silent slap in the face to every member of the Price family. On the third day after the police opened the case, the Price family finally made a substantial move. Not an apology, not compensation, but a lawsuit. They were suing me for defamation and invasion of privacy, demanding a public apology, the removal of all online content, and $500,000 in emotional damages. The plaintiff was Ethan Price. The lawsuit was delivered by Ethan's father, Robert, directly to the hospital via the court. Along with the complaint were several blurry photos, showing me in normal group photos with male college classmates 3 years ago, deliberately cropped to look intimate. There was also a medical record from my college days when I had sought treatment for depression. God knows where they got these things. Miss Miller, this is their tactic. Mr. Sterling held the lawsuit, his expression serious but not surprised. They want to muddy the waters, to use a defamation lawsuit to counter your domestic abuse allegations. They're using your past medical history and these so-called inappropriate relationships to discredit you, to paint you as a malicious, mentally unstable woman with a promiscuous personal life who is framing her husband. This is a common counterattack from cornered abusers. I looked at the lawsuit, every word on it reeking of shamelessness and madness. How dare they? Nurse Davis was trembling with anger. They're clearly the ones who did the horrible things, and they have the nerve to sue you and demand money? Because they have no other options. I, on the other hand, was surprisingly calm. The police, public opinion, his job, their connections, all the cards they could play have been lost one by one. A lawsuit is the last resort they can think of. It can stall for time, it can disgust me, and maybe it can scare off some of the less committed onlookers. So what do we do? Will this lawsuit be bad for you? Nurse Davis asked worriedly. It won't, Mr. Sterling answered for me, his voice firm. The elements of defamation are fabricating facts and spreading them. Everything Miss Miller has said is true, supported by evidence. As for these photos and medical records, he picked up the blurry photos and the copy of the medical record, sneering. First, this is an invasion of privacy. The evidence was obtained illegally. Second, it's irrelevant to this case. It can't prove that the domestic abuse didn't happen. Finally, depression is an illness, not a stain on one's character. Using this to attack a victim will only make the judge more disgusted with them. But they've filed the suit. The court will accept it. There will be a trial. We'll have to go through the process. I looked at Mr. Sterling. This will drag on for a long time, won't it? Mr. Sterling nodded. First trial, appeal. At best, half a year. At worst, 1 or 2 years. They want to drag it out, to wear down your time, energy, and money, to force you to compromise. Then let them drag it out, I said, my finger tapping lightly on the lawsuit. Mr. Sterling, we're countersuing. Sue Ethan Price and Margaret Price for intentional assault. Sue them for false imprisonment. Sue them for making terroristic threats. We'll consolidate their lawsuit against me with our lawsuit against them. They want a legal battle. I'll give them one. A countersuit takes time to prepare. And, Mr. Sterling hesitated for a moment. Although your injury assessment is sufficient to constitute a minor disability, going through the full criminal self-prosecution process also takes time. Most importantly, your mental and physical state. I can handle it. I cut him off. They want to drag it out. I'll drag it out with them. Let's see who breaks first. I knew this was a war of attrition. The Price family had lost their jobs and reputation, but they still had a house, even if I paid most of the mortgage and some savings. And while I had my parents' support and a lawyer's help, a prolonged lawsuit would be a huge physical and mental torment. But I knew even more clearly that I couldn't back down. If I took one step back, all my previous efforts would be for nothing. The Price family would be emboldened, and I would forever live under the shadow of being a slanderer. Also, I added, let's make their lawsuit public, and those photos and medical records too. Since they don't care about their own dignity, let's let everyone see just how shameless they can be. Make it public? Mr. Sterling was a little surprised. This might affect the trial. They dared to use it as evidence. Why should we be afraid to make it public? I sneered. I want everyone to see what kind of despicable tactics an abusive family will resort to when they've run out of options. Public opinion is a double-edged sword. If they want to use it to pressure me, they should be prepared for the backlash. Mr. Sterling nodded. I understand, but the way we release it and the wording must be careful, so they can't use it against us. Leave that to me. The night their lawsuit was made public, Ethan sent me a long text from a new number. There were no threats, no screaming, but a pleading that was almost a complete collapse. Asterisk, Amelia, please stop. I'm begging you. Mom is in the hospital. High blood pressure led to a cerebral hemorrhage. She's partially paralyzed now. Dad's hair turned white overnight. He gets pointed at every day. I lost my job. All my friends are gone. I get recognized and spat on when I go out. Our family is finished. Do you really have to hunt us to the very end? Those photos and the medical record? My dad got them through his connections. It wasn't my idea. I know I was wrong. My whole family was wrong. We'll apologize. A public apology. The house is yours. The money is yours. Just drop the lawsuit. Make the online posts disappear. Make all of this end. I can't take it anymore. I really can't. Every day I wake up to endless curses. My life is ruined. Do you really want me to die? For the sake of our 3 years of marriage, please, give my family a way out. I'm begging you. Asterisk. I stared at the message for a long time. Margaret had a stroke, was hospitalized, partially paralyzed. The news was a bit surprising, but on second thought, it was to be expected. A domineering, controlling person like her, suddenly going from a matriarch to a reviled outcast, from an abuser to a potential convict. The huge psychological shock and fear were enough to crush an elderly person's health. Robert's hair turning white overnight. The man who was always silent, always a bystander, was finally paying the price for his years of condoning. Ethan, abandoned by his friends, socially dead. All of this sounded tragic, pitiful. If it were the old me, I might have softened, might have thought maybe I was being too harsh. Maybe I should give them a chance. But not now. I opened the reply box and typed, word by word. Asterisk, Ethan. Now you know how to beg for forgiveness. Do you know how I felt when I was lying on the kitchen floor with a broken leg, begging you to take me to the hospital? Do you know how I've lived every day for the past 3 years? Your mother's stroke is her karma, your father's white hair. The moment he stood by and watched me groan in pain on the floor, our marriage was over. From the moment you implicitly allowed your mother to harm me, there was no way out. If you want a way out, you can. A public written apology. I've already told you the specifics. Asterisk. Before I could send it, there was a soft knock on my door. A middle-aged woman walked in. She looked familiar. Ah, it was Ethan's aunt, his father's sister, Carol Price. An aunt who rarely interacted with the family, supposedly due to a conflict with Margaret years ago. Amelia, she called my name, her expression complex. I came to see you. I looked at her warily. Are you here to be a peacemaker? Carol shook her head, putting down a fruit basket. I came to apologize. Apologize? Yes. I knew something was wrong with my brother's family for a long time, but I was afraid of trouble, so I didn't get involved. I've wronged you. After saying that, her voice broke, and she buried her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking with shame. I moved aside to avoid it. You don't need to do that. What they did was their doing. It has nothing to do with you. It's not unrelated. Carol stood up straight, her eyes still red. Even though I didn't interact with them much, we're still relatives. There were some things I knew about long ago but just turned a blind eye. That miscarriage you had. Was it Margaret who deliberately delayed taking you to the hospital? My heart clenched. How did you know? That Margaret. She bragged about it to me in private. Carol's face showed a mixture of disgust and pain. She said she wasn't sure if the baby in your belly was even a price, so it was for the best that you lost it. I called her crazy at the time, but she's my sister-in-law. I didn't dare say more. Later, when I saw you were okay, I just let it go. So that's how it was. The suspicion I had never wanted to probe, the doubt my parents had wanted to pursue but I had stopped them. It was true. And your debit card, has Margaret been holding it all this time? Every time you went back to visit your parents, did she check your luggage, afraid you were taking things? When your parents came to visit you, was she always sullen and said nasty things? Carol listed things one by one, and with each one, my face grew paler. You knew all of this? I knew it all. Carol closed her eyes in pain. I tried to reason with them. I argued with them. It was useless. My brother is afraid of his wife, and Ethan sides with his mother. I'm just the estranged sister living in the suburbs. I didn't want the drama. What could I do? I could only stay away, out of sight, out of mind. But I never thought they could be so evil. To beat you like this. She covered her face and sobbed. This time, I didn't comfort her. Knowing and staying silent is a form of condoning in itself. Her guilt was real, but my forgiveness was not something to be given at this moment. I waited for her to cry for a while, until her emotions stabilized a bit. Then I spoke. Aunt Carol, you didn't just come today to apologize, did you? Carol looked up, the tear tracks still wet on her face, but her eyes had become firm. No, I came to tell you something that might help you. What is it? Margaret's stroke is fake. Carol lowered her voice. I went to the hospital to see her yesterday. The right side of her body wasn't moving, but her eyes, her complexion, they weren't like someone who had a real stroke. I tried saying a few provocative things, and her eyelids twitched. Her fingers moved a little. She's faking it. To get sympathy. To make you drop the lawsuit. I was stunned. Faking an illness. That was indeed something Margaret would do. How can you be so sure? My own mother-in-law had a stroke a few years ago. I know very well what a real stroke victim looks like. Margaret, at most, had a temporary limb dysfunction due to emotional agitation. It's definitely not a cerebral hemorrhage, Carol said confidently. And I overheard my brother talking to the doctor, asking the doctor to write a more serious diagnosis, preferably one that was life-threatening at any moment. The doctor refused, but prescribed some nerve-calming medication. So that's what it was, using a serious illness for moral blackmail to escape legal punishment. And another thing, Carol continued, they're suing you not to win, but to drag you down, to wear you out. Ethan, my brother had him transfer all of their savings, and the remaining money in the account you used to pay the mortgage, to another account. It's about $45,000. They might be trying to hide their assets so that even if you win the lawsuit, you won't get any money. My heart sank. As expected, they were getting desperate. Thank you for telling me these things, I said sincerely. This information was crucial. Don't thank me. I don't deserve it. Carol shook her head and took an old phone out of her bag. Take this. It's an old phone of Ethan's. My nephew was playing with it and somehow managed to recover some things inside. There are chat logs, photos, and some audio recordings. I haven't looked closely, but it might be useful to you. She put the phone down and gave me another deep look. Amelia, the Price family has wronged you. Make them pay what they should pay. Make them suffer what they should suffer. Don't be soft-hearted. I'm leaving. We probably won't see each other again. With that, she turned and left, her steps a bit unsteady, her back looking old and desolate. I picked up the old phone. The screen was cracked, but it could still be turned on. What would be inside? Chat logs between Ethan and his parents? Evidence of them planning to control me, to deal with me, or something else? I didn't open it right away. Instead, I handed it to Mr. Sterling, who had just walked in. We might need technical recovery. What's inside could be very important. Mr. Sterling took the phone, his expression serious. I'll find someone to handle it. Also, I'll verify what Carol told you. If it's true, then they're not just suspected of domestic violence, but also fraud and hiding assets. This lawsuit will be a long one. Then let's fight it. I looked out the window. It was dark. The city lights were coming on one by one. Fight until they're bankrupt. Fight until they're completely disgraced. Fight until they can never hold their heads up again. The old phone Carol left was like a Pandora's box, lying quietly in Mr. Sterling's evidence bag. I've found a reliable tech friend, Mr. Sterling said. A preliminary check shows the phone is password protected, but it can be bypassed with technical means. Recovering deleted data will take about 2 or 3 days. Also, I've obtained a copy of Margaret's detailed medical records through a private connection. He took out a few sheets of paper from his briefcase. The hospital's diagnosis is transient ischemic attack due to hypertension, with mild right limb dysfunction. In layman's terms, a mini-stroke. It's far from the partial paralysis and life-threatening condition she's been claiming. Furthermore, the attending physician made a note in the file. Patient's family repeatedly requested a more severe diagnosis, which was refused. So she was indeed faking it, or at least exaggerating her condition. As for hiding assets, Mr. Sterling pushed up his glasses. I've already filed for pre-litigation asset preservation, but the known bank accounts under the Price family's name have less than $5,000 combined. The account you used to pay the mortgage was cashed out 5 times on the 3rd day after the incident, totaling $42,000. The person who withdrew the money was Robert Price. The surveillance camera footage is very clear. Can we get it back? If it's ultimately determined that this was a malicious act of hiding marital assets when dividing property in the divorce, you can request that he receives little or no share. But if they've already spent the money or hidden it, it will be very difficult to recover, Mr. Sterling said frankly. However, with the withdrawal history and surveillance footage, we can at least prove they were hiding assets. This will be very beneficial for the judge in determining the extent of their fault. I nodded. The money was important, but right now, I was more interested in what was on that old phone. 3 days later, Mr. Sterling came to my room again with a USB drive and a stack of printed documents. His expression was very complex, a mixture of anger, disgust, and a hint of relief. We've recovered most of the data. He plugged the USB into his laptop and opened several files. The chat logs are mainly between Ethan and some of his drinking buddies. The photos are mostly unimportant, but there are some you've never seen before. He opened an album named 2019. Inside were our wedding photos, looking sweet and perfectly matched. But as I flipped through, the atmosphere of the photos gradually changed. There was my tired back as I cooked, a side view of me falling asleep while working overtime late at night, my pale face after being discharged from the hospital after my miscarriage. These photos were all taken sneakily, like candid shots. He was secretly taking pictures of me. Not just that. Mr. Sterling opened another hidden file. The password had been cracked. Inside were even more shocking photos. The bruises on my arm, the scrapes on my knee, and one picture of a pool of blood on a hospital bed from my first miscarriage. The date of the photo was when I was unconscious. Why would he take pictures of these things? Look at the chat logs. Mr. Sterling opened the saved chat file and searched for the keyword photo. A conversation between Ethan and someone named Mike appeared. Asterisk Mike. Bro, you sure your wife's bruises weren't from your mom? Asterisk Ethan. Nah, she fell on her own. But it's good to have pictures. If she doesn't listen next time, I can use these to scare her. Say she has self-harming tendencies, that she's mentally unstable. Asterisk. Mike. Damn, that's smart. Asterisk Ethan. You can't spoil women. You have to make them afraid. Only when they're afraid will they listen. Asterisk Mike. So you took pictures of the miscarriage too? That's messed up, man. Asterisk Ethan. It's always good to have something up your sleeve. If her parents come looking for trouble, I can say her body is weak. She couldn't carry the baby. It's not our fault. Asterisk Mike. You're a savage. I'm impressed. Asterisk. The date of the conversation was 3 years ago, less than 6 months after we were married. So, from that early on, he had already started scheming, already planned his escape route, already treated me as an object to be tamed and controlled. Not a person, not a wife. An icy chill shot up from the soles of my feet, instantly spreading throughout my body. I gripped the bedsheet, my knuckles turning white. There are also audio recordings. Mr. Sterling's voice pulled me back from the icy abyss. He opened an audio file. First, there was a noisy background, like a family gathering. Then, my mother-in-law Margaret's shrill voice. Robert, did you see that? Just because she said the vegetables were salty, Ethan started putting food on her plate and coddling her. What kind of behavior is that? Soon, she'll be walking all over us. You need to talk to your son, Robert's mumbled voice. Young people, it's normal for them to be affectionate. Affectionate my ass! Margaret's voice rose. When I married into your Price family, if your mother told me to stand, I wouldn't dare sit. Daughter-in-laws these days are out of control. Ethan, let me tell you, you can't be nice to women. You have to set the rules. Remember last Christmas? Did she spend too much on gifts for her parents? Next time, that's not allowed. Next time, that's not allowed. Where's her debit card? Have you gotten it yet? Ethan's voice, tinged with a cold amusement. What's the hurry? Mom, I have it. She doesn't know. I'll wait a while and find an excuse to ask for it. If I push too hard now, she might run off. She dares. She took our name. She plays by our rules. She made a vow before God, till death do us part. Remember? She's stuck with us until we put her in the ground. Her parents are across the country. What can they do? Margaret snorted. Oh, and shouldn't she get a checkup? Make her see a fertility specialist. Clearly, something is wrong with her if she can't hold a pregnancy. If she's broken goods, trade her in. If it can't be fixed, then divorce her. Don't let her delay our Price family from having a grandchild. I know. The recording ended. The date was 1 month after my first miscarriage. So that was what her nagging about having a baby was all about. Behind it was such cold calculation. In their eyes, my body was just a tool for reproduction. If the tool was defective, fix it. If it couldn't be fixed, discard it. There's one more. Mr. Sterling's voice was very low. It's from the night your leg was broken. He opened another audio file. It began with the dull thud of the rolling pin hitting bone and my sharp scream. Then, Margaret's cursing, Robert's weak attempt to intervene, and Ethan's line, "This is your punishment for not listening." What followed was my pained moans for help on the floor, and the background sounds of them eating, watching TV, and laughing, creating a hellish contrast. The recording lasted for nearly an hour. until the sound of me crawling out the window disappeared. They were still discussing the plot of a TV show. Mr. Sterling turned off the audio. The room was deathly silent. I was trembling all over, not from fear, but from a bone-deep chill and a profound sense of absurdity. What kind of den of monsters had I been living in for the past 3 years? The family, the marriage that I thought was right, it turned out to be a meticulously planned taming and enslavement from the very beginning, and I was foolish enough to think that if I were good enough, patient enough, I could earn a little warmth. Miss Miller, Mr. Sterling's voice, brought me back to reality. This evidence is extremely powerful. The chat logs, the photos, the recordings, especially the last one, which captures the entire process of the assault and their cold indifference afterward. This is no longer just a civil dispute. This is solid evidence of a criminal offense. Intentional assault, false imprisonment, humiliation, all can be prosecuted. He paused. Furthermore, this evidence shows that this wasn't an impulsive act, but long-term, premeditated physical abuse and mental control. In court, this will be a knockout blow. I took a deep breath, then slowly exhaled, trying to calm myself. Can this evidence send them directly to prison? Intentional assault leading to minor disability usually carries a sentence of less than 3 years. But combined with the long-term abuse, the vicious nature of the act, their arrogant attitude afterward, the hiding of assets, the slanderous countersuit, the judge will consider aggravating factors when sentencing. Margaret was the main perpetrator. Her age and illness, even if fake, might be taken into consideration. But Ethan, as the husband who condoned and assisted, will also have a hard time escaping conviction. Robert's involvement will depend on the details, Mr. Sterling analyzed. More importantly, with this, their defamation lawsuit against you will collapse on its own. The judge will see clearly who is lying, who is maliciously framing whom. Good, I said. Just one word. So what's next? Make several copies of this evidence, one for the police to supplement the case file, one for you to use in all subsequent legal proceedings, and one more, I looked at Mr. Sterling, posted online anonymously. Mr. Sterling was stunned. All of it? No. I shook my head. Choose the most crucial parts. The recording from when my leg was broken, the screenshots of Ethan's chat with his friend, and the recording of them scheming about my salary and forcing me to get a checkup. Pair it with a simple, explanatory text. Post it. Then, we wait. Wait for what? For their final, desperate act, I said. When all the veils are torn down, when their ugliest, filthiest truth is exposed to the light of day, what will they do? Will they collapse completely, or will they make a final, desperate move? Mr. Sterling understood my meaning. You want to force them to do something more extreme? Then catch them all at once. I'm just presenting the truth to the public, I corrected him. As for what they will do, that's their own choice. But either way, with this evidence, whatever they do will only make them fall harder. That night, the processed audio clips, screenshots of the chat logs, along with a brief timeline and factual narration, appeared on several of the most popular social media platforms. The title was not sensational, just a simple statement. Audio recordings of abusive husband and his mother exposed, scheming for wife's salary, disregarding mental health, coldly watching after breaking her leg. This time, it wasn't a ripple, it was a tsunami. The calculated cruelty of Margaret in the recording, Ethan's coldness, my desperate screams, and their laughter created a stark contrast that made anyone who heard it feel their scalp tingle and a chill run down their spine. In the chat log, Ethan's line, "You can't spoil women, you have to make them afraid. Only when they're afraid will they listen," became the most glaring label. Asterisk. Is this a human being? This is an animal. Asterisk, asterisk. I cried, listening to the recording. How desperate must she have been at that moment? Asterisk, asterisk. Scheming for her salary, taking photos of her injuries to frame her as mentally unstable. Is this whole family psychotic? Asterisk, asterisk. And before they pitied his mother for having a stroke, turns out it was fake. Disgusting. Asterisk, asterisk. Support reporting this to the police. Sentence them harshly. Asterisk, asterisk, Ethan. Price's social death is too good for him. He should be physically dead. Asterisk. Public opinion completely boiled over. This time, no amount of influence could suppress or divert it. All the previous slanders and countersuits from the Price family became the most ridiculous joke in the face of this ironclad evidence. My phone was once again flooded with messages of support and concern. Several local women's rights organizations even contacted me, offering any help they could provide. And the Price family went completely silent. No more threatening letters, no new lawsuits, no relatives coming to the door, no public response whatsoever. They were like 3 rats, stripped of their fur and exposed to the sun, cowering in a dark hole, awaiting their final judgment. But I knew that silence was often the most dangerous, especially for madmen who had nothing left but resentment. Mr. Sterling increased the security for my parents. The hospital also beefed up its security. Dr. Evans even suggested I transfer to a more discreet rehabilitation center. I refused. "What's coming will come," I said. "Hiding won't solve the problem. Besides, I want to see what else they can do." The moment the door was pushed open, I was awake. Not because I heard a sound, the sound was as light as a cat's paw, but because of a kind of intuition, the hair-raising feeling of being stared at by a venomous snake. I didn't move, kept my eyes closed and my breathing even, pretending to be fast asleep. My left hand quietly slipped under the pillow, gripping the personal alarm that Nurse Davis had secretly given me. At the same time, my toes moved slightly, touching the emergency call button connected to the nurse's station at the foot of the bed. It was a device doctor. Evans had specially modified for me, extremely discreet. The shadow paused at the door, seeming to adjust to the darkness, confirming my position. Then, it slowly approached, its steps unsteady, reeking of alcohol. It was Ethan. Even without seeing his figure clearly, I would never mistake that presence. He came to my bedside and stopped. In the faint light from the window, I could see his bloodshot eyes, his twisted face, and the knife in his hand. "Amelia," he began hoarsely, his voice like something crawling out of hell. "You destroyed me. You destroyed everything." I didn't open my eyes. My heart was pounding like a drum, but my body remained completely relaxed. I was waiting for an opportunity, waiting for a response from the nurse's station, or for him to get a little closer. My job is gone. My friends are gone. My money is gone. My house is gone. Everyone is cursing me. Even my own father calls me a loser, he mumbled incoherently, the tip of the knife trembling in the dim light. "It's all your fault. It's all because of you, you venomous woman. You jinx." The strong smell of alcohol washed over my face. The tip of the knife pressed against my throat. The cold sensation made my whole body stiffen, but I forced myself to endure, not to open my eyes, not to scream. Just one cut, and it will all be over. His voice was filled with a manic excitement. "You won't be able to sue me anymore. All that stuff online will disappear. I'll still be Ethan Price. I can start over." The knife pressed a little harder. I felt a sharp pain on my skin. This was it. I suddenly opened my eyes, and with all my strength, swung my left hand, which was gripping the personal alarm, hard against his temple. At the same time, my right hand grabbed his wrist that was holding the knife, and I used the knee of my left leg, encased in its thick cast, to ram into his lower abdomen. Ah! The shrill sound of the alarm instantly tore through the early morning silence. The high decibel noise made Ethan flinch. The pain from his temple being struck and his abdomen being hit by the hard cast made him let out a sharp cry, his grip on the knife loosening for a split second. I seized the opportunity and rolled to the other side of the bed, falling heavily to the floor. A heart-wrenching pain shot through my left leg, but I didn't care. I screamed at the top of my lungs, "Help! He's trying to kill me." The door to my room was thrown open. 2 on-duty security guards rushed in, followed by a frantic Nurse Davis and a doctor. The lights were flipped on. Ethan was startled by the bright light and the sudden appearance of people. He held the knife, looking at us blankly, as if he didn't understand what was happening. "Get him! He has a knife!" Nurse Davis screamed. The 2 security guards reacted quickly. One lunged to grab the knife. The other twisted his arm behind his back. Ethan struggled, screaming like a caged animal. but he was quickly subdued, his face pressed to the floor. The knife clattered to the side. I sat on the floor, clutching my neck, feeling a warm liquid trickling out. The tip of the knife had broken the skin. It wasn't deep, but it was bleeding quite a bit. "Amelia," Nurse Davis rushed over, her face turning white when she saw the blood on my neck. "Doctor, quickly!" The doctor quickly examined my wound, stopped the bleeding, and bandaged it. The guards had already called the police and were holding down Ethan, who was struggling and cursing wildly. "Amelia! I'll kill you! I want to kill you! I'll haunt you even after I'm dead!" Ethan, pinned to the floor, was still screaming hoarsely, his eyes bloodshot and crazed. The police arrived quickly. The lead officer saw the scene and frowned. After a brief questioning, he handcuffed Ethan, breaking into a hospital room with a knife, suspected of attempted murder. The officer looked at Ethan being led away and shook his head. "The evidence is solid. He's not getting out of this." As Ethan was being taken away, he kept turning his head to glare at me. The hatred in his eyes was almost tangible. "Miss Miller, we need you to come with us to the station to give a detailed statement," the officer said to me. "She's in shock, and her neck is injured." Nurse Davis stood in front of me. "Can't you just do it here at the hospital?" "I'll cooperate," I said, my voice hoarse. I knew that this time, Ethan was completely finished. Attempted murder, on top of the domestic violence and previous threats. A long prison sentence awaited him. I was halfway through giving my statement when a commotion started in the hospital corridor. Margaret and Robert Price had somehow arrived. Margaret was in a wheelchair, pushed by Robert. Her face was sallow, but her eyes were still sharp and vicious. She was wailing all the way. "My son! Let my son go! It was that bitch who framed him! She drove him crazy!" Robert, his face streaked with tears, was pleading with the police and security guards who were blocking them. "It's a misunderstanding. It's all a misunderstanding. My son just came to visit his wife. He was emotionally agitated. He didn't mean it." When they saw me, with a bandage around my neck, sitting in a wheelchair and giving a statement, Margaret's wails stopped abruptly, replaced by vicious curses. "Amelia, you jinx, you homewrecker. Why don't you just die? Give me back my son." Robert, on the other hand, grabbed the officer's arm desperately, then slumped against the wall, sobbing uncontrollably. "Officer, please, I'm begging you. Be lenient. My son was just being foolish. He didn't mean it. It was this woman. She drove him crazy. Look at all that stuff online. She made it all up." The lead officer looked at them coldly. "Whether it's made up or not, the law will decide. Right now, the evidence is solid. Ethan Price attacked someone with a knife, suspected of attempted murder. You are his family. If you continue to cause a disturbance here, slandering the victim, we can arrest you for obstruction of justice." Margaret was about to curse again but was held back by Robert. He looked up at me, his eyes full of pleading. "Amelia, Amelia, I'm begging you. For the sake of your 3 years of marriage, please, let Ethan go. He's still young. He can't go to jail. Whatever you want, we'll give you. The house, the money, everything. Please, just drop the charges. Please, just tell the police it was a misunderstanding, that he was drunk, that he didn't mean it." I looked at him silently. The man who had once coldly watched me get my leg broken was now kneeling on the floor, weeping pathetically. "A misunderstanding?" I began, my voice hoarse from my neck injury. "When he pressed a knife to my throat, that wasn't a misunderstanding. When he called me a venomous woman, a jinx, and said he had to kill me to start over, that wasn't a misunderstanding." I paused, watching their faces turn pale in an instant, and said, word by word, "That night, my leg was broken. I was lying on the kitchen floor, in so much pain I thought I would die. You were in the living room, eating, watching TV, laughing. At that moment, did any of you ever think of letting me go? Ethan lost his job. He was cursed by people. You think he's pitiful. What about me? The torment I've endured for the past 3 years. My leg, the night I almost died, my lost child. Who has pitied me? You ask me to let him go? Then who will let me go?" My voice was soft, but in the quiet corridor, it was clearly heard by everyone. Margaret opened her mouth, but ultimately said nothing. She just slumped in her wheelchair, her eyes empty. Robert, as if all his strength had been drained, collapsed to the floor, covering his face and letting out suppressed sobs. The police escorted them away. By the time I finished my statement, it was dawn. The morning sun shone into the messy hospital room. Dr. Evans personally came to check my wound, confirming it was just a superficial cut that hadn't damaged any major blood vessels or nerves. But I had suffered a huge psychological shock and needed rest. "You're transferring, doctor," Evans said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "To the rehabilitation center. It's quieter there, and the security is better. It's not safe here anymore." This time, I didn't refuse. The transfer process was quick. I was moved to a quiet, private rehabilitation center in the suburbs. A private room, professional caregivers, strict visitor control. My parents received the news and rushed over. Seeing the bandage on my neck, my mother burst into tears on the spot. My father held my hand tightly, his eyes red, but he couldn't say a word. "Mom, I'm fine," I comforted them. "It's all over." Was it really over? I didn't know. The wounds on my body would heal, the scar on my neck would fade, and my leg would slowly recover. But some things in my heart that had been shattered could never be put back together again. A few days later, Mr. Sterling brought the latest developments in the case. Ethan Price, for suspected attempted murder, intentional assault, false imprisonment, and making terroristic threats, had been formally arrested. Margaret, for suspected intentional assault and humiliation, was released on bail pending trial due to her illness, even if fake, and age. Robert, as an accomplice and for obstruction, would also face legal prosecution. As for their defamation lawsuit against me, it had been dismissed by the court due to insufficient evidence and the plaintiff's own suspected criminal activities. Also, Mr. Sterling handed me a file. Based on the evidence you provided and the large cash withdrawals from Ethan's bank account, the court has preliminarily determined that the Price family engaged in malicious hiding of marital assets. In the subsequent divorce property division, you will have an absolute advantage. The house will most likely be awarded to you, and a portion of the savings they hid will also be recovered. And these are interview requests from several media outlets and a publisher who wants to write a book about your experience. Mr. Sterling took out another stack of documents. "Refuse them all." I shook my head. "I don't want to be a commodity anymore. Let's just end it here." Mr. Sterling nodded. "That's probably for the best. Living a quiet life is better for your recovery." "Thank you, Mr. Sterling," I said sincerely. "Without you, I couldn't have made it this far." "It was your own strength," Mr. Sterling smiled. "I just did my job." Another month passed. I could slowly walk with crutches. The scar on my neck had faded so much it was barely visible. My parents picked me up from the rehabilitation center and took me to the apartment they had rented for me. It wasn't large, but it was full of sunlight and warmly decorated. Outside the window was a sycamore tree, its leaves slowly turning yellow in the autumn wind. Life seemed to have returned to peace. I no longer paid attention to any news online, got a new phone number, and cut off all contact with the past. Occasionally, Mr. Sterling would call to update me on the case. Ethan's case had been transferred to the prosecutor's office. The cases against Margaret and Robert were also in progress. The divorce decree had been issued. The house was mine, and the Price family had to pay a certain amount of compensation. Everything had been settled. One late autumn evening, I was taking a slow walk with my crutches in the apartment complex. The sunset painted the sky a warm orange. My phone rang. It was an unknown local number. I hesitated for a moment, then answered. "Hello?" The other end was a long silence, only heavy breathing. Then, an old, hoarse voice, almost unrecognizable. "Amelia, it's me, Robert Price." I didn't hang up, nor did I say anything. Ethan was sentenced to 7 years. His voice trembled. Margaret is paralyzed. Really paralyzed this time, not faking. The last time she came back from the police station, she was so angry she had a stroke. This time, it's real. Half her body can't move, and she can't even speak clearly anymore. I remained silent. The court enforced the judgment on the house. "We're moving out in 2 days. We're going back to our hometown," he choked. "Amelia, I'm sorry. The Price family, we've wronged you. Are you done? I finally spoke, my voice calm, without a ripple. The other end was just suppressed sobs. Robert, I called him by his full name for the first time. This apology of yours, you can keep it. Save your apology. Tell it to your son. Tell it to your wife. Tell it to your maker when you meet him. I don't need it. I know. We don't deserve it. I just wanted to tell you. We got our karma. We really got our karma. He was crying uncontrollably. That's your business, I said. It has nothing to do with me anymore. I hung up. The sunset sank below the horizon. The last ray of evening light disappeared, and the sky turned a deep indigo. The streetlights came on one by one, illuminating the path home. I looked up and took a deep breath of the cool air. Winter was coming, but I knew that spring would eventually arrive, and the storms that had once broken my wings would, in the end, teach me how to fly again.